Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance.
The opening is playing.
I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or
find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel.
That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it, especially if you love the movies? Something is wrong. The opening of this show is not where it's supposed to be. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pretend like whatever's happening is happening. I don't know. Something weird's going on. So we're just going to jump into it. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Sometimes there's just technical difficulties on a show like tonight. You just got to roll with them. I mean, I could play the opening. I could play it again or try and fix it. But you know what? At the end of the day, why bother? Why bother when there's a mistake that's been made? You just push on. You just move forward. That's the American way. You take what's been sent to you and you just turn it into lemons into lemonade. So you know what? What's great is I've got my compatriots. I've got the people you want to see. I've got Mmmm and I've got Lael Rockwell. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know them, you love them.
Yep.
Lael Rockwell and Mmmm, how are you both tonight?
Okay.
Hello, Robert. Doing well. How are the both of you?
Wow, I don't doing. Are you sure you're doing well? That seemed a little less enthusiastic. I'm just worrying. I'm worrying.
Tired,
it was like a good
Robert.
week.
I've had a long day and a
No,
long
You know
week.
what? I'm doing super great. I got a chance to see Black Adam, which I'm pretty sure we'll probably talk about at some point.
No, us?
I happen to be on the opposite end of the stick, and I think the critics were absolutely wrong.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. By the way, I don't know if we're
Yes.
hearing your microphone. We might just be hearing from your computer.
All right, let's see, because it
I don't
probably did do that. Here we go.
And by the way, I have some editorializing I'd like to start with tonight.
Yes, and Robert, I did want to mention that Omar94 sent in a letter to you specifically for Midnight Musings.
Oh, I know. I haven't heard from Omar in a while, but he's back with a vengeance. But listen, there was something I wanted to bring up. Obviously, we didn't play the Scarlett Johansson video. I don't know why the opening of Midnight Musings didn't work tonight. I apologize for that. But Lael, I wanted to address something from an editorial standpoint.
Yes.
And I wanted to address something about Justin.
Okay,
Justin from Justin's Collection.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, one of my favorite channels on the YouTubes is Justin Kane's Justin's Collection channel. It is an action figure channel where Justin Kane, who lives in Australia, has been reviewing action figures for years. I watched him for years before I knew him. Elizabeth and I would do Justin impressions of his Australian accent because we liked him so much. Hello. I mean, we would do them. And I'm a big fan of his. Now, last week, I didn't get to go to Las Vegas because I had a family issue. There was an issue that arose. But Justin came out here for Queen Studios event in Las Vegas, where they were introducing their InArts very high-end 6-scale action figures.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
What people might not know is the day before Justin went to Las Vegas, I went to where Justin was shooting his videos of those figures. So I got to hang out and play with them. The figures that InArts showed and that they had behind glass, I got to hold them. I got to play with. I got to open them up. I got to touch them. I got to feel them, including their Aragorn figure, which they didn't display because they didn't think it was perfect enough to show. Justin busted his ass, like he always does, to make his videos. Now, if you know anyone who's a celebrity in their field, They are paid to endorse products.
Mm-hmm.
Justin has never once let anyone buy his reviews, ever. And I watched him. He spent hours and hours shooting those in-arts figures. And he did them the way he wanted to. He was he was completely unfettered, and he did those reviews the way he would do any other review. Now, to be fair, part of the Toys Wonderland did help pay for his flight out there. InArts asked him to be there because, whether you like it or not, he is the preeminent action figure reviewer in the world.
500,000 subscribers.
In the world.
Says it all.
In the world. And yet, he has never done anything but provide great work. And the idea that maybe people give him figures for free to review, I mean, Nike pays millions of dollars to put a sports figure's name on their product. Now, I'm not saying Justin Kane is worth millions and millions of dollars, but he is the preeminent action figure reviewer in the world. And the fact that a company that he has partnered up with Toys Wonderland, Justin buys figures. He's bought figures for me. He doesn't just get shit for free. And even if he did get everything for free, it's not like he's not doing the work. He's getting stuff for free because he's the preeminent action figure reviewer. Everybody wants to court him, and you can't buy his opinion. And there are a lot of people I hate seeing. I hate seeing in the community that he was receiving a lot of hate from people that I don't know why they would give him shit. He's been doing the same thing for 4 or 5 fucking years, you know, and he's busted his ass. And if he has someone like Toys Wonderland, do I think Toys Wonderland is the greatest place in the world? No, their customer service leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, I ordered a figure they marked to me as being shipped, and it never left Hong Kong. I wrote him a letter. I'm like, yo, they just refunded my money. Didn't get the figure. I'm like, look, I want my figure. Where's my figure? Just give it to me. So it's not like they're perfect. But it's not like there's any, Justin is not some Godfather-esque figure who's trying to rip people off. And the reason that InArts went to him is because he's the best there is at what he does. He does a very academic review of figures. He does every figure the same way. He's the only person that shoots like in a light box and shows you everything because it allows you, the way he shoots his reviews, to make up your own mind. And what I have to say, as somebody who personally was able to hold every one of those figures and play with them and look at them and look, like, it's hard to explain that Bruce Wayne's overcoat, his jacket on that Battinson figure, it's like nothing you've ever felt before on a 6-scale figure. I don't know what material they used. It's incredible. And the way you can display it, you can see it in the box. And a lot of people, I'm not going to mention names because everyone knows who they are, but the way he was treated and the way he's been treated by the community, I find very difficult to swallow. And I felt it important to come out and speak. I couldn't go to Vegas. I wish I was there because I would have boxed. I would have defended him. The guy's there to deal with action figures. And if there's anything that's supposed to bring us joy in this community, it is our action figures. And Justin, I watched him bust his ass shooting those figures, and he'd been doing it for 2 days. And by the way, if you see the box, I mean, I know it's not the final box. The box that Joker comes in is, first of all, it's huge. That InArts gives you these capsules, these capsules that can display the individual heads. It's awesome. And I'm like, they're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. They want to make the best action figures possible. And I'm just saying that there is no subterfuge here. Justin is not, I mean, there's a reason why people want to team up with Justin to get their product out. And if somebody, like anyone who is a celebrity in their field, he flat out gives you, he says, I got mine from Toys Wonderland. Whether he paid for it or they sent it to him, who cares? Does it matter? He does the work. The guy's done, I watch him, he's meticulous about how he shoots this. I'd never seen him work before. So I actually watched him with the light box and the posing and the this and that. And like, he's meticulous and he's a perfectionist about his work.
About everything he does.
Yeah, and without belaboring the point, Justin Kane from Justin's Collection there's a reason why he's at where he's at. And I know he's been getting, I think, a lot of unwanted hatred. And I consider him a dear friend. I couldn't go to Vegas. I felt like I let him down. And but he busted his ass to be there and to do the best work he could to review those figures. Yeah. And don't put your, and by the way, I can say this about InArts because I went to dinner with some of the guys. They are truly trying to make the best action figures possible. They're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. They had this event and showed you their product. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I held all 5 of those figures. Batman, Bruce Wayne, Pennywise, 6 figures. Gandalf and Aragorn. So it's 6 figures. And I got to hold the Aragorn and it's fucking great. Nice. But I'm just saying that I just wanted to speak out in defense of Justin. Yeah. Because I really feel that any hatred that's directed at him is completely unwarranted.
Yeah. And the hatred, it's hatred from the thing is it's crazy because I had him on the show on Wednesday. He reached out. He was like, "Hey, you know, him and Will Foxification have patched up. Everything is good. They are friends again. You know, Will defended him, which was admirable. The public display of scrutiny that he had gotten at the event live. It was a live. Now he got scrutiny live from an individual that will not be named because I don't want to give you that energy, but that was right there. It was appalling.
I agree.
Polarizing. It was the most, unforgivable act on a person's character that I've ever seen. And to do it because you wanted clicks and likes on your video and subs on your video or subs on your channel. That to me was completely humiliating. And that doesn't speak for everybody else that's part of this community. Even though you thought it did,
no,
it didn't. And to attack a person's character, no, you may not look. A person, it's like I told Justin, it's like I actually opened the show with. A person such as Justin, he is not Toys Wonderland. He is not InArts. He is representing a company based on business, based on the simple fact that they asked him to be a representative and to review their product.
And they asked him based on the work that he's been doing for years.
Man, look,
good,
it's great
business. Good, unimpeachable work.
Exactly. Look, for any business, like in anybody who knows business, if you're somebody who's just hitting the market, you're a brand new company, you want to go to the best because that's how you're going to get your product out there. It makes perfectly good sense. He has 500,000 followers. Why wouldn't they do it? If they didn't do it, I would question, like, what the hell are you doing? So
and by the way,
made so much sense.
I sat in the room where he was doing this at the Airbnb in Glendale, California, where he'd come. Yeah. And he was not going, he was being very clinical in his assessment of what was going on. Yeah. And when I saw a certain video that everyone saw, I was appalled by it. And I'm like, you know, he's a nice guy. And he's achieved a lot of hatred. Yeah. Undeserved in my mind. I know I know half the people watching this are going, what the hell are you talking about? It's a small community. But I'm just saying, I would say this. I would give anyone who's interested, who's listening to me wax rhapsodic about Hot Toys figures or 6-scale figures, I would direct you all to Justin's Collection on YouTube. He provides a very clinical, a very academic review of every single major 6-scale action figure, whether it's Hot Toys, third party, Sideshow, anyone. If you go, you will spend the next, months looking through all the figures. He's got every single major action figure release. And if you listen to his reviews, his opinion is unimpeachable. He tells you like it is. He is never shilling for any company, regardless of whatever. The guy is just, he loves action figures the way we all do, and he's just trying to provide a great assessment. I didn't know he was on your channel on Wednesday.
Yeah, he came because he hit me up. I think it was that Monday, and he asked, could he, jump on? I was like, yeah, of course. I said, why not? And yeah, it was him. We had a full panel. It was him,
Nice.
World Foxification, brother cousins. We had a whole bunch of people that were on there, and I opened the show with that, with a certain level of dialogue, just to try to unify the community, because I didn't want to give. The thing is, like I said, we're not here to give ignorance the spotlight, and I didn't. I just wanted to kind of try my best to unify the community as much as I could, and to actually give him a platform, not to defend himself, but just to speak about the work.
He has nothing to defend.
Nothing at all.
Like, his work speaks for itself. It's the best there is. There's a reason why Sideshow copies him.
That's what it
You know
is.
something, gentlemen, there's always going to be professional jealousy, especially with a person like Justin, who has such a high level of excellence in what he does. You both have actually told me that he travels with his equipment so that he can get consistent results through the videos. One of the things
he brought his own camera stuff, his light box, everything.
Exactly. And one of the things I want to mention is my vision isn't what it used to be. And that means that when I go on to Sideshow's website and they show me photographs of a figure or whatever it is, I can't see the details correctly. The photographs are not good enough for me to go ahead and say that I'm happy with it or whatever. So once Justin starts to do his review, I get a different perspective and different angles that, it's not anything against Sideshow, let's say, but just for the fact of the matter is that a lot of the photographs they provide don't necessarily hit the mark for people like me who don't have the same vision that they used to have. And Justin, I think, I'm sure, I can't say for certain that's one of his main things, but he is trying to show you different perspectives of the figures. But another thing that he does, and you both can attest to this, is that he'll show you an earlier version of the figure or several other versions of the figure, or several, maybe not even the 1/6 scale, but maybe some other versions of it side by side. And, I think that also helps you to make a decision. Sometimes you may not buy the figure he's showing. You might buy the other one, or you'll say, I'm going to stick with this one. And I think the idea about all of this is that he's providing you with information so you can make those choices, those decisions that's right for what you want in your collection. And there aren't a lot of situations like that all the time. Yes, there are other reviewers, and we respect them all and have a lot of esteem for them. But Justin, I'm completely unaware of all this stuff goes on. Usually I hear from Lael will tell me different things, but I
tell you what's important. Not
you
the
do tell me.
You know what I mean? What's important, and the most important thing is that he got invited to an event and he excelled, and the company got exactly what they wanted, attention on product, and he did a damn good job at making sure that the product was out there. So that was the important part. The less important part is that there was a level of ignorance purposely set out to destroy his character, his integrity and everything. And you know what? It didn't work.
No. Well, the funny thing, why would anybody want to? Like, the funny thing is, I would say if someone said to me, Justin's a sweet guy, the fact that he has a childlike sense of wonder when it comes to 6 scale figures. He is not jaded at all. And what's made him jaded is the community of the last 2 years since, post-pandemic or during the pandemic. I mean, he was a guy that started his own YouTube channel and did a really good job at what he does. And I was a fan of his for a couple of years before I even met him.
Yeah.
And I was a fan of his because, there used to be like hot chicks toy reviews like 10 years ago. A girl named Wendy and her husband owned a comic shop, and they would do reviews. When she stopped doing reviews, I mean, when I found Justin, I'm like, oh.
But hey, Rob, you know what though? Through Justin, I fulfilled my bucket list, part of my bucket list, and that was meeting you.
Well,
I told you that.
Yeah, I mean,
I told you that.
Well,
when he told me, he said, "Yo, why don't you come on the channel? I mean, why don't you come on the show and with Rob?" I was like, "No, you're kidding me." He's like, "No, for real, come on." I was like, "No, stop playing. I'm not. Don't play with me, Justin." He's like, "No, come on." I was like, "All right,
well,
sweet, cool."
I mean, look, and if okay, there's another reason. Streaming with Justin, he's brought people together.
Yes, he has.
You know, and Justin, one of the viewers, I got my Elvis figure, which is right. Well, you can't see it, but it's right behind me with my 6-scale band, because Justin, someone sent the figure to him, and he sent it to me. You know, and brother cousins, by the way, Anthony 6-scale Mafia sent me brother cousins' address finally, so it's in the box. Brother Cousins is getting his Joker.
Another thing that Justin does, and you both already know what this is called, but I don't know what it's called. You know, sometimes he has the lighting different. Like he'll show something with a dark background or a light background. And it doesn't seem very important in the way that I'm describing it. But when it comes to looking at details of these figures, he's very specific. He'll say, I want to show this particular background. It's a lot to somebody like me who doesn't see well. So seeing that level of detail that he's trying to show, my mother watches the reviews with me. So she'll say, oh, I can see this a little differently with the different light effects.
Yeah.
The lighting makes a big difference. All these little details make a big difference. And even my mother the other day said, well, can you move him around? Can you sit him down on the chair? I said, well, my mother is asking these questions now about some of the figures because she has a few. So I think it's very interesting. She's, you know, kind of looking at what he's saying, and he's very, you know, precise about what he is expressing in how these figures can be positioned and how, you know, you might want to show them in your display. He purposefully puts them next to other figures so that you can see size comparisons, so that you can get an idea of the quality of the materials. That was something that we saw this week. You know, obviously, Robert, you saw it. Lael, you already know what I'm talking about. But the clothing on the Joker apparently was so well tailored, and I had said that it reminded me of, you know, you don't usually see such beautiful tailoring on figures like that. But honestly, I think that the attention to detail is just like that tailoring. He deserves praise, not censure, for the work that he does. And he answers comments of hundreds of people who watch his videos, and he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to take time out of his day to do that, but he does. So, you know, that does say a lot about his personality, and that he cares about that people are watching this and can get something from what he's doing.
Not only that, he's a loving husband, and he's also a cosplayer. He makes his own costumes, or he has costume pieces made. He also, whenever there's a display of real costumes, like when they do it at the various places in Australia, whether it's Fox Studios or whatever, he'll go and he'll take pictures of the actual costumes from movies. I mean, he's not just some dilettante buying action figures. I mean, he's a believer. You know, he's a true, and it's so. I mean, I felt bad enough that I couldn't go to Vegas because he counted on me going. I couldn't do it, and it pissed me off. And there was one point where I was going to leave, and I just couldn't leave. And
well, honestly, Robert, both you and Lael have always supported Justin, so there certainly isn't an issue about that. You've always held him in high esteem and have always, you know, let anyone like myself who doesn't know everything that's going on to rest assured, you know, about his character. There certainly was never doubt about that at all.
Yeah, no. I just thought that I didn't, seeing somebody like him treated the way he was treated, I thought was appalling. And then, you know, I haven't liked the way he's been treated over the last 6 months, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of people
the last couple of years, bro.
Yeah, and I'm just like, you know what I don't understand. Do people not understand business? I mean, you have companies that are competing. I mean, Justin is the one guy that is all about the product being sold. You can't bribe him. It sounds like people are like, they think that he's being bribed. I'm like, he doesn't need to be bribed. Like, the fact is, if there are people, if I wanted to get like review copies of movies on physical media, I used to get free shit all the time. I could just call up, make a phone call, and get them. That doesn't mean I'm going to review something favorably. I mean, people want to get the word out, so it doesn't. It's not unusual the way business is done to think that people would send Justin figures to review. You know, keep the figure. I mean, to be honest, the first big screen TV I ever had, and at the time they were over $10,000, was sent to me by Pioneer, and they just said keep it. I mean, it was a $10,000 piece of electronic equipment. I mean, they said keep it. What do they care? You know, I put it in a movie. They're like, great, put it in a movie. So, and then I waxed rhapsodic about it later. And I loved that TV. I had it for a very long time. It served me well. But I don't understand why people don't get that, like, Justin is being paid as a consultant or a pundit or whatever, but he'll tell you that. He says flat out, I got my figure from Toys Wonderland. You know, if you want to get it there, it's got this. He mentions thing. He puts their, and why not? He's not going, you have to buy it there. He's saying, I bought mine there, or I got mine from Toys Wonderland. I mean, he buys shit from all over the place. He buys and sells.
It was more, the thing is, it was an agenda. It was an agenda, and it was, again, a whole bunch of keyboard warriors who got together and stoked one individual's ego to make him go out there and you know, to perform a public display of humility. You know what I mean? Like, he humiliated Justin, or tried to, in public. And I don't need, like I said, I don't want to give this person that much clout because they don't deserve it, but it didn't work. But the thing is this is something that's been going on for a while, and it's a blatant sign of nothing else but jealousy. You can't call it anything else but jealousy, because a lot of people aren't willing to put in the hard work to get on that level.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, Justin Kane, for those of you who are wondering what the hell we're talking about, go to YouTube and look up Justin's collection, and you will see years of action figure, 6-scale action figure, Hot Toys reviews. And Justin does the best reviews in the business. And look up your favorite character, look up whatever, Justin reviewed them. And if he hasn't reviewed them, it's only because he wasn't able to get his hands on the figure. I don't know if he ever reviewed the Jor-El figure from Superman Returns, because I don't think he has one. You know who has one, though?
You do.
Me. I feel sometimes I should just, package it up and send it to him. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to editorialize for a minute, and I figured with the two of you, because we all collect action figures, and we're all fans of Justin's. Lael, I know, you're of all the people I know, you're the most calming influence on the internet. And I figure,
try to be, bro.
I think you are. And I think, you know what? If I'm having a bad day, the first place I go is Facebook, and I look you up because you have clearly published some kind of soothing, calming, something that I relate to. I'm like, okay. Even when you're upset about something, you're like, let me explain to you. And you lay it out. You're not confrontational. You're just like, no. I don't need this negativity in my life in some interesting way.
I don't, because as soon as something like that happened, when it happened, and because the thing is, it happened right after, because we were actually on a stream with Riley. Riley was at the event, and he did a live stream. Justin was there. Justin got on camera. We talked. He was like, he posed the figures, and everything was cool. So after it was over, I got, a message from someone that said, look, can you watch this person's show? I want you to watch this person's live stream and tell me what you think. And that's when I saw what I saw. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. Yeah. But if you give it that level of attention, then, of course that person won. And I tried to do it in a way that I didn't, give him that space. But it was just basically we're put here to defend our friend. He's a friend. Yeah. And especially a friend that doesn't deserve the amount of hate that goes. Because the thing is, nobody can, if you ask a person, well, why do you really hate him? It's always associated with the company, but he's not that company.
No. And here's the thing. I mean, like that company, this is not Microsoft, it's not Tesla. It's not Nike. It's not these are companies. I mean, when you're dealing with action figure companies at their very core, they're people that love collecting high-end 6-scale figures, and it's so silly to me. Look, Molecule 8, if you know the history of Molecule 8, I own their one figure, their John Lennon figure that they made, they ran off. But you know what? That one figure they made was fucking incredible. It's an incredible figure, and it sucks that they screwed people over and didn't pay their artists, and I should feel guilty for owning that figure, but I don't, because it's a great figure. And I really wish they were going to make a Jack Burton. They were going to do Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, which I had pre-ordered. I mean, anybody who gets it, the very idea that somebody who gets into making high-end 6-scale figures is out to screw people over, like, they'll get into real estate. It's let me just tell you, it's a very small market we're talking about here, and it's the same thing. If you feel the need that you think you're going to get rich later and sell your toys, Hot Toys has a reissue for you that'll say that's not going to happen. I mean, you got to love the community. You've got to love what you want, love these figures, love the hobby, love being a collector, and to go after the one guy who bears his soul in every one of his reviews, who proves on a daily sometimes basis how much he loves this hobby more than anyone in the world, because it's Justin Kane.
Yeah.
It's Justin's collection. And I wholeheartedly endorse everything that he's done. He's been a great friend, a great stand-up. If anything, I fucked him over by not showing up to Vegas. And he was competent. He was taking care of all that stuff. You think I didn't want to go?
No, he understood, though.
And but let me tell you, Justin Kane, Justin's collection, go subscribe to his channel. I mean, it's not for everybody. If you're not interested in 6-scale figures, but if you are, it's the best.
Well, he also reviews other scale figures too. He's been doing a lot of those.
Yes.
Mezco. What is the name of it?
The 1/12 scale figures. He does 1/10 scale figures. He basically does all of the high-end action figures that are.
And he mentioned that he's going to do his statues, right? He said he's going to do them and add those on too. So he collects, varying size collectibles. Or reviews varying size. It's not just one, but
I mean, if you look up 1/6 scale collecting, if you look up 1/6 scale figures, he's the first video that's going to pop up. Like literally, he's the first person that will pop up when you look up these things. And the thing is, his tutorials are just ahead of the rest because he puts that much detail into it. You know what I mean? So like, even if when you watch, watching his video on Gandalf made me want that figure even more. I didn't want it before, but it made me want it.
Can I just say, that figure is fucking incredible.
It's nuts.
I'll tell you what was really interesting, what struck me the most about, first of all, these InArts figures, they're the shit.
Yeah,
and what was really interesting to me when I was looking at them, first of all, the fabric, the thing that struck me the most, the fabric on the Bruce Wayne jacket, the Battinson Bruce Wayne jacket, I'm like, what is this? It just felt so good. And the way they had it wired up, all the accessories, everything. I mean, but at the end of the day, what's really interesting, and I don't know if this is necessarily true. When a company says, or when they come out and go, we're making these premium 6-scale figures, you kind of expect a rainbow to show up behind them and angels to sing. But they're still just 1/6 scale action figures.
Yep.
And as much as I like them, at the end of the day, you can't sit in them and rev the motor. They're still 1/6 scale action figures. And let's face it, Hot Toys figures are pretty fucking good. So when you're holding InArts figures, the level of difference between a Hot Toys figure and an InArts figure is not like a figure from Kenner, a Star Wars 12-inch figure from Hasbro of 1999, and a Hot Toys figure from today, which the difference is vast. The InArts figures are, I would say, if Hot Toys figures are Blu-ray, InArts figures are 4K. And that's they're still very, very good. But I mean, even the box that Joker figure came in, if you saw, and they even told me it was a prototype, the box, the 2-level box, I mean, it was this gigantic, it looked like a guitar case. And the way it was all, and with the 2 capsules with the heads, and I'm like, everything in it was just awesome. It was awesome.
The shipping is going to be a bitch.
I can't even imagine. I just don't even want to know.
Fuck.
I know. But you know what? Worth it. Anyway, now that that's over, now that we spent 40 minutes and everyone's going, Rob, what the hell are you talking about? I just have to say that Mega YouTube 99 goes, "Hey Rob, curious as to what your thoughts on Joe Rogan are." I want to answer this because, okay, here's what I find really interesting. Joe Rogan is a stand-up comic. He's an MMA or a fighting commentator, and he has the most successful podcast in the world. And basically, he's an everyman that brings on people, all kinds of people, men, women, political figures, scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bob Lazar, who may or may not have worked on alien technology at area,
Jordan Peterson,
Jordan, all kinds of people. Joe Rogan just sits and asks people questions. And I'm like, sometimes, whether he's he does, some of the things he's done are certainly questionable. But at the end of the day, who else is bringing people on their show and talking to them for 3 and 4 hours at a time? And I would say that there's a reason why Joe Rogan is as successful as he is. And I will say this. Yeah. I appreciate the fact that Joe Rogan has a podcast where he's bringing people on and asking the kinds of questions that we would ask. Now, there might be a subject matter that he says things that you completely disagree with, or he brings on somebody that you don't like. But I would say that if you look at Joe Rogan, you have to look at him holistically. You have to look at everybody he brings on, and you have to look at all the things that he's done. He's going to bring on people you like, people you don't like, people you don't care about. But the same thing is true of Bill Maher. Bill Maher has a political show. A lot of people don't like him, but at least he's trying to bring on people from both sides, Republicans, conservatives, Democrats, libertarians, whoever, and he tries to foster conversation. Now, he might be a raging liberal that's now being pushed more toward the center or whatever, but I appreciate anyone. The philosophy behind my channel here is that every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and anybody who is bringing on people and starting discourse and allowing people to speak is somebody I will support. Now the important stuff. Andor, episode 7. Let's get into it. Before we get to Black Adam, I got to tell you, I mean, not only is she hot, but man, am I behind everything Mon Mothma does. I'm just like, your husband's a dick. Your daughters don't like her. I want to rescue you, Mon Mothma, but I know you're going to help found the rebellion, and you dress really, really well. What did you guys think of Andor episode 7? Let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I loved it. Of course, this is the episode that we see a number of different things happening. The thing that stands out to me is that Andor, I guess, has now found his way back to the people from, let's say, episode 1. And he's, I guess, trying to mend fences and stay under the radar. But it's incredibly dangerous, incredibly daring. And of course, it's Andor, so we're expecting him to do things like this. But even I was shocked that he would show up after such a high profile event where, and now he's in, I think it's Makari, I could be wrong on the name of the planet, but Merlani or something like that, where they are now under full on imperial rule. So it's not like before where, it was sort of like
Space Tel Aviv. That's what I like to call it. Space. People say it's Space Miami. I'm like, no, it'd have big skyscrapers. It's Space Tel Aviv. And by the way, can we just talk about how Andor, Cassian wakes up with a hot chick in his bed? We've never seen that in the Star Wars universe. He knows what's up. I mean, that woman, they didn't show enough of her. I'm like, come on, let's see a little bit more of that beautiful creature, because oh my God.
Yes, but certainly that was a wonderful part as well. And we got to see what it looked like a resort. Like a resort.
And the ocean.
But the shocking thing, yeah, absolutely, for me, is that it looks like he's been sent back to prison. So is this a flashback, or is this something that's happening real time?
Oh, no, I think it's happening in real time because he's got the spoils of what he stole.
Well, it's ironic because he, sort of like one of those tourist trap arrests where, he's just mind his own business and he's like, I don't have anything to do with this, and gets picked up and then gets sentenced because I guess maybe the crimes are harsherly punished.
Well,
even though he hasn't done anything wrong.
I got to say, my man Andor, Cassian, I mean, the guy was a total sketchathon. He looks so sketchy. The shore trooper's like, I caught you looking around. He's like looking around.
That was my point yesterday.
I
Yeah.
was very upset with Cassie. I'm like, bro, you should be strolling on the beach. You don't have a care in the world. And you're looking around like you are guilty as fuck.
Well, yeah, his mistake is that he didn't have a drink in his hand. That's always the one way to tell if
But then he
someone's
doth protest too much. He just should have been like, hey, yeah, man, I don't know what's going on. I just came here to check it out. Whatever you need to do, I'll wait right here. Whatever you need, sir. Whatever you need, officer. But he wouldn't do that. I was very disappointed in my man Cassie. And he pulls off this great heist, 80 million credits or whatever. And he can't just be like, what's up? He can't be just chill. I mean, after coming away from that girl, I mean, my God, look at that girl. Look at that chocolate fantasy that was in his bed against those white sheets. My God, with that hair and that body. I don't know why he even left, but he did. And I mean, she's probably like, have you looked at me? Why didn't you come back? She's probably, what the hell, dude? We had a great night and you left her there? Oh my God. Cassie.
Well, I'm sure she'll be terribly disappointed to find out that he's been in prison. But then, of course, now I'm wondering how is he going to break out of this prison? Because clearly that's what happens. I'm sure
he was in prison for longer than it takes to go from that episode of Andor to the destruction of Scarif in Rogue One. Because that's only 5 years. He was in prison for 6. So he's going to get out. Call me crazy.
Yes, he certainly is. And it's going to be very interesting to see this. And it almost seems as if he went in under an alias. I could be wrong on that, but it seems like he possibly was able to tell them that he was someone else. He gave them a false name, so to speak.
Oh, he had false credentials, yeah.
I'm wondering how long it's going to take for them to realize who he really is.
Well, Cyril. Now, let me ask you this, Lael.
Yeah.
So we've been watching Cyril, our favorite beleaguered son with his Jewish mom, who goes to the most dead-end, horrible Terry Gilliam Brazil-like job ever. I used to think we were watching Cyril becoming an evil imperial officer, but I've changed my mind. Yeah. I think we're watching someone who is becoming a rebel. I think Cyril his spirit is being crushed, stomped on by the imperial forces, the empire, his mother, everything that represents. And I think he's coming to realize, I thought that Cassian Andor and him were going to be rivals. I think Cyril's going to get Cassian Andor out of jail. He's going to find him and he's going to say, I tried to do it my way. Fuck these people.
Yeah. I think that basically we're seeing, there might be a small hint right now so far as a transition, but I think right now he's more so fixated on clearing his name. You know what I mean? Because he's like, look, I don't want to say I told you so type of situation, but this is the guy that you needed to watch. Like I knew there was something going on. I think
that they want us to think that.
Yeah. And they probably do. I mean, and at the same time, like for some reason, they're making references to how he tailors his uniform. For some reason, like they're making strong references to that. But we can see that he's a defeated individual. I mean, hell, he thought he was doing what was right, and which pretty much got him placed in the situation that he's in right now. His mom, and it's going to be interesting to find out who this person is. His uncle is, who's basically been helping him out. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a possibility that we could see it. I don't know though, because that's my only thing is I don't want the show to become something like that, to whereas every character that we see is making a transition to the rebellion. You know what I mean? Like I want to see depths of like just pure on like just division, divisiveness, and reasons why it's so divided. Now, if it happens, it would make sense because of the position that he's in right now. But Rob, can I tell you, like, this has been my fantasy show for years. A show where basically, okay, we know that the galaxy is huge, but we're seeing that wordplay that we wanted, the dialogue that we've always wanted. We see it, and there's so many lines and quotables in this show.
Oh my God, the dialogue and to know Mon Mothma is to love her.
Yes, bro.
My God, leader of the rebellion.
Yeah, bro.
And Luthen, I mean, I love him too.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say that it's been very frustrating week after week listening to people talk about, oh, this show is so boring. I'm like, what are you watching?
Man, what are you
Like
watching, bro?
I
It's
guess
like this is Game of Thrones in space for me, man.
it is. It truly is. It's Succession. It's Game of Thrones. It's all this. And what I've really appreciated is how, like, jumping around between Cyril, between Mon Mothma, between
Yeah.
Andor, between Cassian. I mean, it's so fascinating to me. It's like a World War II French resistance show, and I mean, I love it so much. And what's really interesting is people are like, well, I want to see lightsabers and I want to see Jedi. We've seen all that.
I don't.
What we
I
haven't
don't.
seen is this is a story about war. Like I was saying last week, we've seen the star. We've seen the stars. We've seen all that pulp sci-fi stuff. Now we're dealing with the war of it all.
With the war.
And
it can be a war from so many different aspects. The war of just the war of words, war of like this, you know, meticulous things, like as far as like for instance, like we're seeing like a somewhat of a fractured republic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're seeing basically a fractured Senate and how people actually have their own agendas, you know, individuals who can't be trusted. Yeah, I mean, we see a rebellion that's on the rise, but we also see a fractured empire from the inside. And we now know, like we wanted to know for so many years, how the fuck is rebellion getting money? Now we know. It's money laundering in space. We see that. Like literally, we are seeing these things, or it is, but the wordplay, like when she said, like, it's bro, like what was the line about the rock and the like she learned from Palpatine,
right.
with the stone in one hand with the knife up to, you know, around the neck. Like, bro, this the wordplay, the sheer word. And if you've never loved Mon Mothma before,
Oh
man,
my God.
yeah.
I mean, and what I find really interesting about this show is I don't understand people who think it's boring. And it really is. And I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not being one of these people. If you do find it boring, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, as somebody who like, I'm sitting here in a room where I literally have 4,000 movies on Blu-ray or 4K. And I've seen movies from all over the world. I own movies from all over the world, all different kinds of films. And I feel that I think that fandom today, modern fandom, has been missing out in terms of all the different kinds of stories that are available to you around the world. And I see, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but some places like Netflix that put on Squid Game from Korea, or Dark from Germany, or RRR from India. We now have access to different kinds of stories from around the world more than ever before. And I think it's going to change. But I think this idea about what people want from Star Wars has been very limited. And I have to say, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett were huge disappointments. I wish the level of writing in Andor was what we got in Kenobi, like we've talked about. And I look at this and I'm thinking, I'm so fascinated, even the way the show is shot and everything about it, the way they treat everything. There's none of that pulp sci-fi sensibility. I'm getting peak verisimilitude. It's the Viceroy of verisimilitude. Somebody called me, but I am all about that. This is the most realistic, most down-to-earth, most stripped-down version. I feel like we're watching the indie rock darling version of, I mean, we're watching Nirvana's Nevermind, but in a Star Wars show. You know what I mean? I mean, we're getting that stripped-down, you know, 3-person band making a Star Wars show, and it's just because they don't have lightsabers, they don't have kyber crystals, so they can't ignite anything. So what they've got is they've got their stripped down grungy band rocking and rolling, and that's what we're getting out of Andor.
And you know what was really what I love about it is that you're finding yourself invested in characters who you never thought you would be invested in. Every single character I am so vested in, like I want to know more. And they're giving me more, you know, slowly but surely. You know what I mean? Like I keep forgetting her name. The officer. What is her name?
I don't know, but man, do I love her.
Yo, she's incredible,
And
bro.
this
And I'm
this
just like,
the Imperial Security Services or Security Bureau
yeah,
or Empire Imperial Intelligence Bureau Empire. I could watch. I want to see a series just about them.
just
And he's
about
like,
them,
"Well done, walk with me." And all he says is like, "Watch your back." I'm like, "Fuck, I love this show."
I'm glad he said that because,
Yeah.
she needs to realize that by excelling, she's putting herself in more danger.
At risk. Yep.
They absolutely want to tear her down. And, fortunately, she has been somewhat more aggressive with everyone and taking risks that a lot of the other officers are not willing to take because they know what it can cost them. She's going to go far. I mean, if she doesn't get killed first, but I think if she doesn't get killed first, she's going to go far up the ladder for sure.
This is a show for you.
Yes.
It is a show for grown-ups. I imagine you basically coming home, lighting candles around the house, getting your favorite wine, sitting down with your hair billowing slowly as you turn on this show. That's what I imagine.
It's true, especially during the Mon Mothma scenes, because I like to imagine that I am at a party with Mon Mothma on Coruscant. It's a special party. It's very exclusive, and you can find out anything you need to know or get anything you want at one of her parties because the elite of the elite is there, or people who know how to get stuff are there, like Luthen. Let's say if he were at the party or whomever, you certainly want to have a friend like Mon Mothma. But I know I had said this before, the way that they have shown Mon Mothma, her polished look, how impeccable she is.
And her clothes.
She's stunning. She's just so put together and polished and groomed. And I'm so impressed with what they've done with her, from a production side.
I need to interrupt you right there because Stubble McShave sends in a tip. And there's links to the tips right down below in the description. Stubble McShave says, Rob, you failed to mention the most important thing about Mon Mothma. She's a hot redhead with an air of sophistication reminiscent of Grace Kelly in Rear Window. Your dream combination. And to answer the question that's on Lael's mind, I want to see some fucking. And I'd love to see Flagrant Delecto or whatever it is. I'd love to see Mon Mothma in a compromising situation. However, I'm willing to forego that because I appreciate her position and the fact that she's going to found the rebellion and all that stuff. But, oh, my God, I would love to yodel in her valley if you know what I am saying, and I know you do.
Yeah, she definitely gets offers, I'm sure. Her friend who's there at the party.
Look, I broke Lael. If I don't break him at least once a show.
They certainly have had an intimate relationship. They're very tight. She thinks that she can trust him with something that essentially means she could die. So he's not just, an ordinary friend. He knows things about her that only intimate friends can know. So there has been something like that. And the husband kind of intervenes because he's like, F no, he's not talking to my wife. I'm not going to allow that. So, he really feels like he has to go there and kind of break them up. But honestly, they are still very, very, very tight.
By the way, I just want to point out the phrase yodeling in the valley does come from a hip hop song. Yodeling in the valley, yo, yodeling. I can't remember what song it's from, but it is from a hip hop song. It's old school. It's I don't think it's too short, but it's someone like that.
Yes, and I haven't seen Mon Mothma around. She seems to always have attractive men around her. So
except her attractive husband with that man bun Jedi wannabe douchebag fuckhead.
He does feel like a wannabe in that outfit, doesn't he? Like as if the outfit of a Jedi is a novelty now because they don't exist anymore. So he wants to dress retro.
Oh yeah,
I'm dressed like a Jedi. Isn't it funny how we can? It's become the fashion, and it's so cute and fun. It's almost a mocking to what was essentially a religion for some.
Well, after Order 66, these people were such. I mean, her husband. I mean, I love that the guy, the banker, that her friend that she grew up with, her old friend, the banker. That, like you said, you knew they, and then she's just married to this Obi-Wan Kenobi looking wannabe douchebag.
Yeah. Well, the banker gentleman, is still very much interested in her. And he suspects that she is doing different things. As a banker, he would know already that she is moving funds in a way that she's not supposed to. So he knows things about her. He hasn't come up to her and said, hey, I know what you're doing. That's not his style. He's very slick. You see his reactions on his face. He's been wanting her to confide in him. I don't think because he wants to necessarily, give her all the secrets that he knows, but he just likes to be well informed. And so he knows that if by knowing this information about her, it may just benefit him, or he can make a better decision without, perhaps improving his survival. But this is a question that I'm curious about both of you. How is this relationship going to proceed between the two of them now that she has, told him one of many very important and, illegal secrets that she's essentially expecting him to help her? What do you think is going to happen between the two of them?
I think, well, the thing is, like, of course, they've been friends for years. That's her childhood friend.
What is it?
I don't know. The stream disappeared for a minute. I don't know why.
Frozen?
We were hopefully we're back. I think we're back now.
I think we're back.
It's buffering. I mean, that was weird.
I think we're back.
Now we're back.
For a second, but we're back now. Yeah.
Okay, good. It was very weird. Whatever happened, that was bizarre. Considering
because
I'm hardwired into the internet.
Yeah.
So
the force is with the billowing tonight. That's why.
Well, something, I think that when we're talking about the idea of sitting down, having wine, watching the show, this is in a long time that we can talk about a Star Wars show where now I feel very confident. I personally feel very confident that they're not going to drop the ball on this going forward.
No,
I can sit down and relax. I can, kind of get that wine out there, savor it, enjoy myself. I don't have that fear of, being let down with this. Also, the performances of these actors is quite remarkable.
My God. Yeah.
They're having to carry work. This is the first time out, so to speak. This is the first time we're seeing Mon Mothma character or these characters' intimate moments, and they have to create them. It's on a page. It's on a page that says Mon Mothma is speaking to an old friend or whatever. But remember, this actress doesn't really have anything to gauge that by. She has to create that now from scratch. It's a new experience. Getting that tone right for this character, it feels like Mon Mothma, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, no, it really does. And she's phenomenal, in this role. And she was never, what I find really interesting about her is, when we met her in Return of the Jedi, she didn't have a lot to do. And it was sort of interesting. I always felt like, wow, this is an interesting character. Where did she come from? In the episodes, so we're 7 episodes into Andor, and I honestly think that Mon Mothma is one of the best Star Wars characters ever.
Yeah,
and because that's the thing we've only seen the everyman, Luke and Han, a farmer and a truck driver respectively, and we haven't seen the politicians before. I mean, what's really interesting is I wish, again, we talked about this before, I wish the prequels were written this well. I mean, can you imagine if we got, I can't help but imagine what Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith would have been like if, Tony Gilroy and his brother, Dan Gilroy did not write these, but if the new, this, by the way, is supposed to be a standalone episode. According to the showrunner, Tony Gilroy, this episode was standalone. And then the next 3 episodes go back to that 3 episodic 3-act structure, and then episodes 11 and 12 are going to be the climax. So, and the way they left this episode off with Cyril sitting in the middle of his cubicle. But my God, I mean, I'm watching this, and it's so interesting to me. It's just plussed the Star Wars universe. I don't think Hot Toys is ever going to make a Mon Mothma figure, but God damn, do I want one.
I think they will. Someone is going to make a Mon
third
Mothma.
Party, maybe, yeah.
If they make it, I'm pairing her up right next to my Last Jedi Leia.
We're definitely going to get a Yadro, I think, figure of
a Yadro. Yeah,
yes,
that I could totally see.
Yes. And the other thing I wanted to say was both of you were talking, or one of you mentioned about her comments about the emperor. And so this is the first time that I have heard, let's say outside of the regular characters that we know who talk about the emperor on a regular basis, this is the first time we're hearing someone kind of casually just say, well, you know, the emperor, this and that. I mean, I think that just even the mention of the emperor's name, it sounds and feels somewhat terrifying. She's very calm about it. But there isn't a lot of talk, I think, of him at this party. I think people, just like her husband, just want to have fun. I think that his reaction to her was indicative of the idea that nobody wants to talk about what's going down in the Senate.
The fact that they name drop Palpatine for the first time in this episode, I am convinced more than ever that we're going to see Palpatine in the series. And what's going to be interesting,
so?
Yes, and we're going to see him different than we've ever seen him before.
Yes,
he's going to be he's going to be a statesman. He's going to be somebody that, he was from Naboo, and he became he was Palpatine, and then in a vote of no confidence, he replaced Valorum. And then he became the emperor. But we are going to meet Ian McDermott. I am convinced of this, but it's not going to be like he's going to be a charming statesman. He's going to walk in and own the room. We're going to see him shake hands. It's so good to see you. Blah blah blah. Because how fucking awesome would that be? And you know what? Tony Gilroy said we're not going to get any fan service. But this literally is about Palpatine's government. It's about the Empire, and he's the head of the Empire. Now we know he's a Sith Lord. They're not going to show us. He's not going to be like, They're not going to see. We're not going to see anything like that. We're going to see his disfigured face, but he's going to walk in with his cloak on, and probably be smiling. Oh, it's so good to see you. Blah blah blah, whatever. And it's going to be that much more terrifying because he's going to show up at a dinner party.
So you think he's going to be more calculated?
Yeah, I think he's going to, and I think we might hear him give a speech. I think I think this show needs to give us a moment where Mon Mothma and Palpatine talk. And it is the scariest fucking thing ever. And it'll be the moment when Mon Mothma is like, this motherfucker has to go down. I'm already involved, and he might even know what she's doing, and make some kind of a great, but it'll be totally low key. It won't be more power. It's not going to be anything like that. He's just going to walk in and be
her motivations now, from what I can see, is that those shipping lanes have been cut off. We saw it in the Clone Wars. We're seeing it now where people are starving. They're not getting the stuff that they need. And she's like, I'm not going to let this happen. I've been here a long time, and I'm not going to allow this to happen. And I think at some point she's going to realize that, the unspeakable is going to happen, or witness unspeakable acts, have access to that. And I think that her friend, who's the banker, and maybe we'll meet another very close friend of hers who will inform her of what's actually, maybe a little bit more information about what's actually happening, might add to change her motivation from, let me just help them with these shipping lanes, to what you said, Robert, we have to do everything in our power to defeat this, and I'm resigning, and it's over. I can't be part of this. But I wonder, and I'm curious what both of you think. Once she gives that resignation speech, isn't there a target on her back after that point?
Oh yeah.
After she walks away.
Oh yeah.
For
I think
sure.
There's already a target slightly on her back right now.
Yeah, and she knows it. I mean, look, she's already plotting with Luthen, even though she doesn't realize how deep into it he is.
Yeah.
And look, I think Luthen was a Jedi.
He's balls deep in this. Okay.
Yeah, he was a Jedi.
He
and
wakes up and that's where
the Kyber crystal, that's from his lightsaber.
Yes, I think that if he isn't one, he knew a guy.
Yeah, either knew a guy, but I think that's why he's got Jedi and Sith holocrons. He's got all that shit. That's all his.
But this is a good question. This is a really good question, because this is the first time I've ever seen a consignment shop in Coruscant, and also one that has holocrons, which I've always known for Jedis and Sith only to have. The average person doesn't have a Sith or a Jedi holocron.
They don't even know what they are. I mean,
exactly.
what's so interesting?
We're seeing them a lot in the show. They keep showing them on the shelf.
Because all the Jedi are dead. I mean, here's what I find so interesting. What people forget about this show is the Jedi have been vanquished. You know, I mean, even for a while. You know, for decades, and it's so funny. I want to see Jedi. There aren't any. I mean, we're basically watching a post-mortem. I mean, as I talked about this before, can you imagine what it would be like in 10 years if you're a kid, you're 8 or 9 or 10, and your first experience of Star Wars is watching Andor, and you watch the 24 episodes of Andor leading you to Rogue One that leads you to A New Hope, and that's how you experience Star Wars for the first time?
Well, yes.
I mean, I'm like, wow, wouldn't that be awesome?
It is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that we got the character, Bill Burr's character, where he worked with the Empire, and he has sort of like this institutional knowledge, that's how I'm going to call it, where because he's aware of how procedures work, he's able to do certain things that other people can't do. He knows how to function and get certain things. That bit of information is really critical going forward. And I think that Andor going to this prison is also going to increase his knowledge going forward. He's going to get or make contacts in this prison, because if anybody can survive a prison stay, it's Andor. You know, I think he's going to understand some of the machinations and also witness something that, you know, he's already been in prison, but witness the current state of the it's so awful. Witness the current state of, you know, what's going on in penitentiaries, or at least where they're bringing people, because that might not have been something that he was necessarily focusing on or cared about previously, but it could also give him other additional information that he needs, you know, maybe to even help the rebellion. So that is something to think about in that regard. And also learning a little bit more about how this new version, or as the Empire is starting to create new rules and regulations now across the galaxy. But there has to be some reason why he's going to this prison, and he's going to meet someone there that's relevant, I think. Who do you think he might meet that could be helpful? Maybe somebody from the underground that he doesn't, you know, or hadn't had contact with, who would be beneficial to Andor.
The one who knows Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, I mean, that's because this movie, this season takes place it's 5 years before Rogue One. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's got to be somebody we know from the Clone Wars, and it's Saw Gerrera and someone that knows him, because we know he's going to be in the show. Yep. By the way, there's a couple of Andor related tips. People are like, where do you tip? I mean, there's tip. You can do two things. You can super chat or tip. The tip link is below. It's different if you don't want to super chat or whatever. But old Tom Jin sends in a tip and says, "Hi all, I've been astounded by the performances that we're seeing in Andor. Is it unreasonable to start talking about potential Emmy nominations for members of this cast?"
Absolutely.
Would love to hear your thoughts. I think it absolutely is.
Let's go. Yes.
I mean, obviously, there's always a prejudice against genre material. Sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, and especially Star Wars. You know, people think that Star Wars is... You have to educate the Television Academy about this show if you want Emmy consideration, because you're fighting against what people's perception is. Even with Disney Plus, if you think, oh, it's the Book of Boba Fett? I mean, this is going to fight an uphill battle, but I think it's absolutely a battle you could win, because the acting, the writing, the technical specs, the cinematography, the production design, the visual effects are all just top notch.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I agree. It really is stunning work. For me, this is the Star Wars universe. There are so many places that we haven't seen. Coruscant is sparkling as ever. Someone had made a comment at her party about her living this certain type of lifestyle. And, you know, it looks really good to me. I don't know how everybody else
She's
feels
got a great
about
apartment.
It, yeah, it's gorgeous. You know, everything about it is glistening. And, you know, I certainly don't have a problem with that. I think that lifestyle is beautiful, and you know, she's very lucky to have that, you know. But honestly, if she does, let's say, continue with this, she has these spies who are around her now, and you know, it's not such a shock that she has people tailing her and watching her.
Right.
Who it's got to be the emperor who's doing this, you know. I don't think the other people who she's, you know, been talking against. Who do you guys think is following her? Who do you think it is?
Well, I basically think that, you know what, part of me even thinks that her husband has someone following her. And
that's what I think.
I think that he basically is, again, he's an you know, an empire enthusiast. You know what I mean? He's basically an emperor enthusiast, and he wants nothing for him, nothing more than to look good, you know, amongst the Senate, amongst Palpatine. So of course, I think that he is looking for ways to expose his own wife just to get ahead, and I think that she even knows that. Honestly,
wow, I love it. I love it.
I totally agree with you, Lael. I think that's exactly what's going on. And the funny thing about this is that, I mean, again, like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, what I love about this show is it deals with the complexity. Nobody is Star Wars, the original Star Wars, which I dearly, dearly love, it changed my life, was literally about good and evil. It was about simplicity. This show is about the complexity of a life, anyone's life. That nobody is good, nobody is evil. We're all different shades of gray, and there's reasons why the pressures of life that come down on us forge us into the people we are, and some people get a raw deal, others don't, and it's never. I mean, life just happens, and what I love about this show is it doesn't judge its characters. The fact that I hated Cyril when I first met him. I hated that motherfucker. But at the end of this episode, when the camera is up high and you see he's in this cubicle and there's endless people just like him, none of them are special. They're all just one cog in a machine. They're just functionary. I'm like, oh man, Cyril, this sucks, bruh. I want you to get out of there. Like, I'm sympathetic to this douchebag's plight. And I'm like, that's why the show is good. Because you're invested, like, you understand. You listen to his mom. His mom's voice is as grating to me as it probably is for him. And that's only because she's a great actress. But when you're watching this, that last shot of this episode, leaving him in a wasteland of cubicles. Like, what's so funny is that sci-fi is always great when it's allegorical. How many people were where Cyril is? How many people are right now in their jobs where Cyril was? In a cubicle and endless. Yeah. I mean, without Steve Carell showing up being in the office. I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome the way they leave you.
Yeah, he certainly has a lot in common with that ISB officer, the woman, in regards to taking risks, because she's taking risks and he took risks. And unfortunately, it resulted poorly for him.
And it's working out better for her.
Yeah, because he was a douche too.
But
she did the work.
He is paying attention to the news. And he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And, he's keeping that in mind. He's taking down notes, even though he looks disinterested sitting in the, the breakfast, nook with his mom, and she's giving him breakfast and making sure he eats every day. And he looks very sad and depressed. His eyes lit up when he heard about the heist. Like, he became just
because he knows he's right. He knows he's right.
Yes, he became reanimated, and I think that might be how or why he might meet up with this ISB officer. She's very thorough.
Yep.
She might end up contacting him. I know it's a long shot, but she might be asking during her investigation who else might have seen this person. If he ever put down in a report that he actually saw Andor, she's going to be coming or possibly knocking at his door because Andor is possibly connected to the incident that happened on the planet with that Wayfinder or whatever it's called, the Wayfinder. So there is kind of a roundabout way that they possibly could meet one another now, at least.
Darth Plato sends in a tip and says, I think fans are pissed about Andor because the show is seen as fruit from the poisonous tree. Until Disney does something to show that the sequels won't happen, then Andor can't do enough good to offset that anger from the Star Wars fan base. No to the sequels. Well, here's a funny thing about us as fans. And I say this as someone who works in the industry. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. I mean, honestly, they do not care. The only people that care are the creators who work on these properties. Mm-hmm. And when they're given, like, let's face it, I hated Force Awakens. My opinion does not matter. The movie made $2 billion. It was the first, I believe it was the first movie to make $2 billion. No, Avatar made more. But for a Star Wars movie, that's a lot of money. So here's the thing. Yeah. It does not matter whether The Force Awakens was good or bad, and I hated it, and I think it was terrible storytelling. Doesn't matter what I think. Doesn't matter what any Star Wars fan thinks. Disney bought Star Wars for $4 billion, and that movie grossed $2 billion. Half of their investment was made whole by that movie. Yeah. And then Last Jedi made $1.3 billion. And Rise of Skywalker, one of the very worst science fiction movies ever made in the history of science fiction movies. Rise of Skywalker is fucking terrible. It's terrible. It made $1 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, the literally, all you have to do is take the crawl from A New Hope and compare it to the crawl of Rise of Skywalker. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory over the evil Galactic Empire. Cut to, the dead speak! Come on. Who thought that was a great crawl? The dead speak? When have we ever... Did we ever think the dead would ever speak in the Star Wars universe? Yeah. Like Palpatine's talking... That the worst audience betrayal since the last season of Lost. Terrible. Andor is somebody coming along going, Star Wars could actually be good again. Not since 1999 where it's all been okay. I mean, The Mandalorian is fun, but even The Mandalorian isn't just genius. It's serviceable. It's fun. And let's face it, The Mandalorian was supposed to be a Boba Fett movie. Who are we kidding? And then they're like, why does it have to be Boba Fett? Let's just make it The Mandalorian because of Dave Filoni. Okay. And
it kind of makes me feel like somebody basically brought, it's like, it's like Gilroy brought everybody in the room, all the actors and stuff like that. It was like, hey guys, check this out. You remember everything that we actually saw in The Last Jedi, with Snoke and Luke and his turn, and then we saw everything that we saw from The Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine, the Dyads, stuff like that, horses on top of spaceships, in the air, basically. Remember all that? Fuck all that. We're not going to have that in this show. Like, there's no conversation about that. This is what we're going to do. We're going to write a good show, great dialogue, character development, and we're going to focus on what it means to be a working class citizen in the Star Wars universe getting fucked over. It's reality. And that's what they basically did. And that's the thing, is like, and this is my question to both of you guys. Do you think that Andor now can be the platform, the skeleton, can be that basically blueprint to say that, okay, even though it to some they may think it's boring, but we see that it is gaining traction and people are paying attention to it. Maybe we need to restructure our dialogue for some of these other shows and make it stronger. Do you think they can possibly look at this and say we can do something like that?
Do you?
Well, I think one thing that might happen is that I think that in regards to having a story that has a certain aesthetic to it, it's hard to describe what the aesthetic for the Kenobi show is, and it's hard to describe what the aesthetic is for the Book of Boba Fett. But we know what the aesthetic is for the Mandalorian. You know, we can say that it's sort of like a he's a man who fights in space and then finds a child and then wants to find his heritage, so to speak. But the other two shows, we don't have that. With Andor, we are getting that, but we are also getting something that I think has a more complete story. So in opposed to focusing on just, let's say, the Mandalorian, which is what the Mandalorian does, in this show, in Andor, we're getting stories of individuals in different levels and, let's say, classes. So let's say Andor, I'm not trying to be classist, but
Right.
he's not on the same level as Mon Mothma, who might be considered, sort of like a society elite. And then, perhaps Luthen, we're not quite sure where Luthen is, but he knows the elite. And then you have, the people who are involved in the business of either the Empire or fighting it. Some of these rebel people, some of them were former rebel officers or Imperial officers, some of them, right? That we saw different levels of involvement. And then you have Andor and the just ordinary day-to-day people who don't want to have anything to do with any of these people, are just living their lives. The people who live on the planet there, who sell parts for engines and things. So there's many, many more levels of what we're seeing. This is the first time we're really getting that in such a complete context, because we've heard about it. We've heard about it before, but we've never seen this before. We've never seen this environment before. So it almost will become sort of this benchmark that everyone has to meet. We're expecting to see a certain level of involvement from someone who may be a senator or a former senator in Coruscant, all the way down to someone who is essentially a thief, a Lethargo, whatever you want to call him, now current prisoner at whatever prison he ends up at. Certainly, we are getting this level of detailed information. It has a certain aesthetic to it. We understand what they're trying to say. We haven't gotten this before. So I think also the production value too is something on a level we haven't gotten before in a television show for Star Wars. So it has to be the benchmark. I don't know. It's not that I don't think they could do any better. I just think that the mark is set so high with this one that it's going to be hard to top this. And the three of us have all been talking about how this might be the best Star Wars show. It certainly is the best Star Wars show so far, if you are fine with not seeing Jedis and things like that. But if we see Palpatine, we won't see a Jedi, but let's say a Force user. They are there. They exist. We know that they are out there in society.
But if we see him, we're never going to see his lightsaber. We're going to see him. Right. We're going to see him as a statesman and how he interacts. We've never seen the Imperial Senate was talked about in Star Wars, aka A New Hope.
Yes.
And without the regional governors, the Imperial Senate will no longer. I mean, it's amazing that we are seeing a senator, part of the Imperial Senate that they talked about in the original Star Wars in 1977. And I find it so fascinating that everybody who's, of course, Tony Gilroy, the person who created this, he's like, what was I mean, when I was a kid watching Star Wars, when I was 10 years old, opening weekend, I saw Star Wars opening weekend on Sunday. I tried to go see it Saturday, couldn't get in, went Sunday with my neighbors. The fact that we are seeing a senator who was part of the Imperial Senate that they talked about that was dissolved by the Emperor in A New Hope. I mean, all of what we're seeing is why the Imperial Senate was dissolved. It goes, for me, I'm like, this goes back to when my 10-year-old self, one of my favorite things in Star Wars is that scene when they're sitting around a table. Admiral Motti and Tarkin
until this battle station is fully operational, we are vulnerable. The Rebel Alliance is too well equipped. Dangerous to your Starfleet commander, not to this battle station. I fucking love this shit. I loved it when I was 10. I love it now as a middle-aged man with one foot in the grave. I'm like, oh my God, because you know what? Mon Mothma was part of the Imperial Senate that got dissolved by Palpatine in it wasn't A New Hope, in the original Star Wars in 1977 when I was 10 years old watching this shit. And I am seeing it. I'm seeing what they were talking about. And that's why I don't understand why people don't love this, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing what happened that the people were talking about on the Death Star in the original Star Wars. And Tony Gilroy, these people are not dummies. They're going back and, by the way, we can't hear you, Lael, suddenly.
They're not.
Oh, there we go.
They're not.
Now we can
like,
hear.
Yeah, I don't think
he's going back. He's doing his research. Things that characters, because literally we've gotten a character that was fleshed out not only through New Hope, not only through here, that was also in Rebels. So we're getting these particular characters, like they're showing us, okay, what goes on behind the scenes. Things that you want to know why this person was there. Let me show you why. Let me show how they influence the galaxy, their influence on everything that's happening in Andor's life, everything that's happening with the rebellion.
By the way, you keep going. Hang on, just give me a second. You keep going. Don't stop.
Yeah, like now we're basically seeing like how everything is actually happening as far as the rebellion receiving money, like where they're actually getting their funds from. Like literally, like, look, you can't be part of a rebellion and think that, people are just going to hand you money. Like literally, you either, like, if you're not robbing, if you're not killing someone, then you got to be strategic within the Senate and find someone who can actually help fund your shenanigans. And that's what Mon Mothma's place is. To find someone who can basically provide the resources needed to take down the Senate, not just the Senate, but the Empire from the inside. So, literally, this is what's actually happening. I love the pacing of this show. Again, we're getting Game of Thrones in space. Like, they've been talking about it all day. Like, yo, this should have been a show that was on HBO because of where they're going with it. But the thing is, it's shorter episodes, but you're not even focused on that because you're so vested in the show. It's just like the time matters not. Like when you get to the end, it's like, damn, it's over. Like, how long will I was only watching it for this long? The fuck? But you're so vested in it. And it just, like, when you go back and you're watching, like, we're on episode 7 now. If you go back and watch every episode up until now, it's like a fucking masterpiece. Like, it's a masterclass on how to put things together. I love this show so much. Like, literally. And this is without even actually seeing Jedi, or without even actually seeing a Wookiee, or without actually seeing anyone who's Force sensitive. I mean, we've seen a couple of troopers. We've seen like the clone troopers advance into like the 501st. We're in a garrison. We actually see shore troopers. We see a KX unit in this show. But I mean, those things you would see amongst the Empire. But we're not seeing anyone who's Force sensitive. There's a mention of it, and now that you say that Luthen could possibly be one, now I'm like, fuck. What if he is?
I think he knows someone. I think that, he has to have someone who has connections because he has all that swag. Clearly, I think that it's not an ordinary collection. Certainly he has access to stuff that other people don't have. I didn't know that people had, or had access to holocrons, as I said before. It doesn't seem like something that anybody would have. Ordinary people don't have that. So, but I don't think they would be in his shop if people knew about them. They were in the back. He's keeping them for a special reason, perhaps. But certainly, I think that this particular show is certainly setting that benchmark that they're going to try and continue to maintain. And also, perhaps the writers of the show wanted to tell maybe a more elegant version of what we've been seeing. It's not fast and dirty, is it?
No.
They're taking their time to introduce these situations. We know what's going to happen. So how do you go ahead and reintroduce a situation we know about? Well, there has to be some sort of glamour and romance to it. And I think that for the most part, Andor might be the only person who isn't convinced of all this, because when he's even in the, as you mentioned, Robert, when he's in a palatial place, he can't relax, can he? He's very edgy. He's very, tense. And it could just be inner demons or whatever it is. You know, he's not the only person in the universe to steal money, but why does
But he didn't. I mean, he didn't steal money. He took his cut and left.
Well, I mean, from the Empire.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean,
there are other people.
I meant he didn't steal from his partners.
Right. There are other people, let's say other people in that galaxy who are thieves too. So he's not the only one. In fact, that resort would be the place where, they'd be living it up, perhaps, throwing cash around. So I don't think that
the Tel Aviv of space.
Perhaps he's not comfortable with it. There are certain things that I think he thought that once he got that, he would be happy. Well, guess what? He wasn't. He went right back home, tried to figure out how he could,
which was stupid. I was like, don't do
very
it.
bad. But maybe that's what he, I think it's very interesting that that's the first thing he thought of. I wouldn't have gone back there ever, but it's something to think about. He's not happy necessarily maybe he's not happy with the way he's been living his life, and it's come to a head now. I'm not sure. I'm just speculating.
I got to get out of here. I got to go get Toya.
Go get Toya. No worries, Lael. By the way, before you leave, can you tell people where can they find you?
16 Scale Man YouTube channel. Make sure you actually head on over there. You can also find me by the same name on Instagram and Twitter. We have Collectors Lounge on Sunday. We have Comic Book Talk with Friends on Monday. Say What Wednesday. We have Uncivilized Scoundrels on Thursday. We have Collectors. Yes. We have Figure Flex Friday, and I'll be back here next Friday night with these guys. Or I might even dip in when I get back if you're still on.
Oh, we'll still be on. Dip in.
Yeah, I might dip in when I get back.
Or you could dip into Coco Tulip. Who knows?
I'll see y'all later.
Don't tell her I said that. No.
Yeah, that's funny. She's probably watching right now. I'll see y'all later, man.
Tell her I apologize. You know I love her. She's my favorite woman I've never met.
Tell her I said hello.
Drive safe.
I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Oh, man, I can't believe I say shit like that. That's so, it's funny. She is an incredibly beautiful woman. They're probably the most stylish, beautiful couple in America. I mean, let's face it. The two of them are amazing. But no, I mean, I think you make very good points. And I think what's so interesting is listen to the way we've been talking about this show. When was the last time you heard this kind of discourse about Star Wars? I mean,
I don't know. The original trilogy?
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I love the fact that I see the wind blowing, and I love that. Your hair is...
Yes.
By the way, I know you're the first person to say, hey, there's super chats. Can we just stop for a second, catch up on these? Romy Forever just sends in a support. Thank you, Romy. Our friend S. Beam says, oh, Rob, did you break Aragorn? Laugh out loud. Just kidding. I did not. The only insight I can provide is... I mean, they're like, we don't think the leather on the hilt, the strap, was the right color. I mean, that's how insane they were about this. I mean, in arts, those people are deeply, deeply involved in the perfection of their figures. And rightfully so. That's why I will support them. Christopher Wolf, 72, says, I just saw Black Adam. I left my brain at the door and enjoyed it. Popcorn fun, but no Lawrence of Arabia. Movie out of time from the 90s. Now, we have not talked about Black Adam, and I feel like, okay, Lael's gone. He saw Black Adam and liked it a lot. Now, I would take it that I do not know what your take is. I haven't watched you yet today streaming. The floor is yours, please. What did you think of Black Adam?
Well, I have to tell you, Robert, I knew nothing about Black Adam. So for all practical purposes, it's almost as if I'm a normie when it comes to this character and the lore. The only thing that I knew about him was that he had a relationship to Shazam, so to speak.
Sure.
And, it was like a really important connection about him and that he was a villain. So those were the only things I knew. But other than that,
Fair.
I don't know. anything deeper or more relevant about the characters. So going into this film, I of course was reinvigorated knowing that we were going to get a post-credit view of someone very important. It's not a secret. Everybody knows.
It was, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Knows that somebody who I have been dying to see for years is at the end. But I think something happened to me while watching this film, Robert. And I have to be honest with you. I think that the film had things in it that we've been wanting, like incredible superheroes who are very masculine, who have a lot of testosterone, who have a lot of presence, who are not easily swayed to one side or the other, who honestly know what is important to them. And if they want to go ahead and kill or do whatever it is, they'll just do it. They do not care what's going on around them. But it also excluded a lot of things that we don't want to see anymore. We've been seeing in a lot of films messages we don't want to hear. We just don't care about any of that shit. And this film didn't have anything like that in it. Like, nobody wants to see that sort of stuff. If you want to see films with messages, there are millions of independent films out there with all sorts of messages that you can watch and see to your heart's content and have wonderful, informative discussions. But we certainly don't want to see them in our superhero movies unless it's something that actually pertains to that superhero. And so in this particular case, Robert, when I saw The Rock in his outfit for the first time, I was completely mesmerized. Now, I've seen the 1/6 scale figure, Robert.
I know why you were mesmerized. Come on now.
Well, you know something? There has to be a point where we see strong, muscular men again in positions of power and being able to be the main focus of the film. There was no distractions. I didn't feel as if this film wasn't about Black Adam. This was 100% straight up, straight down about Black Adam, and it was wonderful. You got a sense of who this character was going to be as The Rock has portrayed him. Yeah. I certainly watched The Rock in his outfit and knew that he didn't need any padding or any kind of special shapewear. He's never been in better shape his entire life. And there was a lot of what I call body acting, where they zoomed in and looked at him and you just kind of saw him just in his full muscular pose. It wasn't acting. This is the man as he is. He is naturally this way. He looks like a superhero with a lot of power. He feels like a superhero with a lot of power, and we got to see him use all that power in fight scenes that were just crazy, and then almost comical at points when he would fling someone to the side with absolutely no effort at all. And Robert, I have to wonder about the marketing strategies of the film, which had changed. The film had changed over time. When I first saw those marketing campaigns for Black Adam, I was not impressed. I didn't like the music. I felt that The Rock is an amazing actor and that he wasn't showcased right. But the film that we got, Robert, the film that was in the movie theater, when we sat down with our buckets of popcorn, and in my case, I had a cheeseburger and a drink in my hand as I was watching Black Adam on the screen, Robert, this was one of the best experiences I've had. It was fun. This would have been a summer blockbuster if it had been released in July. People would have gone to see this in droves. This is a fun film. They don't want you to be too focused on thinking about things. You're going to enjoy The Rock. You're going to enjoy the testosterone. You're going to smell the testosterone in the theater. You're going to just.
Is that a good thing?
Pierce.
Aren't we all getting canceled because of our testosterone?
No.
And I'm losing it as I get older. And look at my face.
Pierce Brosnan, I think, is an example of another silver fox. We're going to see silver foxes like this on the screen, like yourself, Robert.
Ooh,
handsome, mature men. He had a guiding, gentle voice that balanced out the ferocity of Black Adam.
That's true. All right.
And it was amazing to see this as he, I'm not going to do entire spoilers, but I have to say, everybody, this was a fun film. They wanted you to enjoy the characters. They did not care about anything else other than you having enjoyment in the theater. This was a fun foray into a character that I didn't even know anything about. I'm excited about this character. And at the end, where everybody was expecting to see the character we've been waiting for 10 years, you know what? It didn't matter to me that he was in the film at the end credit.
Wow. First of all, I have to applaud that, because that was some passionate speech. That's why people come watch Midnight Musings. I appreciate what you're saying. Look, here's my
Here's my take on it. And I have to agree with my esteemed colleague John Campea, who said that this was a bad movie that he loved to watch. and I like here's my problem with all of it. I thought the ridiculous villain, all of that, all I needed, the Justice Society and Black Adam was all I needed. A man displaced 5,000 years. The world has changed. You know, these new heroes, why they had to rip off the X-Men, Charles Xavier's mansion. I didn't understand a lot of... I felt that this movie, I thought it was wildly entertaining, but I didn't think it was a great movie. I thought it was really let down. Again, like every other, the writing was terrible. I thought the writing was really, really bad. And all the elements in it were great. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson gives it his all. But I really believe that whether he believes it or other people believe it, somebody doesn't think that Dwayne Johnson deserves somebody like Steve Zalian writing the scripts that he's being cast in. I don't get it. And I am so tired of our... That's why I love House of the Dragon. That's why I love Andor. Great writing. Although some people like, the dialogue in House of the Dragon is not great. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, House of the Dragon and Andor are what I want to see. Even Top Gun Maverick. Popcorn movie. Chris McQuarrie, who came in and finished that because he rewrites everything Tom Cruise does. He's now a world-class director. I want great writing, even in a franchise property. That kid character. The kid. I mean, I get why he was in there. I mean, it truly felt like I was watching a movie from like 1999 or 98 before X-Men came out. And the effects are great. The Justice Society was great. Dwayne Johnson is great. But all I needed was a philosophical clash. It would have been great if Black Adam's like, you know what? I'm going to remake the world in my own image. Yeah. I am more powerful than any of you MFers. The world, this mediocre where humanity is, it's so lame. I've been asleep for 5,000 years. Let me step up and I'm going to remake the world in my own image and make you stronger. You didn't need lame villains and kid characters. This man out of time that comes from a whole different mindset where it's like you pointed out, when he's like flying straight, he's not going like this. He's flying. I mean, it's majestic. Yes. You see that because he can fly in whatever direction he wants. We're so used to this. But when somebody's flying, it's very Christ-like. It's very messianic. And I'm like, what this movie needed was a really smart person to write it. Because you had everything you needed. And I felt this was kind of a throwback, and it let Dwayne Johnson down in the sense that what better way that you have this guy from 5,000 years ago who comes to the modern age, there's your conflict with Superman. Superman cannot interfere with the affairs of humanity. And Black Adam's like, fuck that. I am part of humanity. I'm going to change this planet the way I see fit. And I'm gonna do whatever I want and interfere with human culture because human culture is a mess. And Superman's like, no, you're not. That is the beginning of a Civil War-esque, like in Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. That could set up an incredible conflict that you can get behind. I thought all this goofiness, hell and warriors and kids and all that shit, you didn't need any of that crap. I'm like, this is not the 90s. And, The Rock wants to... But on the other hand, I feel like his instincts, his storytelling instincts, carry him back to to wrestling.
Yes.
And I feel like some of that was in this movie. And I wish, because I think a lot of The Rock's mindset is still in terms of entertainment, being very wrestling-esque. And it's because wrestling is not erudite. It's not elevated. It's base, literally on the ground. You're gonna, and I think that may be Dwayne Johnson's great weakness. This movie could have been one for the ages. As it stands, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it, and the effects are great. The Justice Society was great. Dwayne Johnson was great. But there's a lot of stupid in this movie that didn't have to be there. And it is, look, I still enjoyed it, but I wanted more. And I think that in this day and age, it's so funny because genre audiences, the people that wrote this movie, it was almost like they have not paid attention to superhero films over the last 22 years that have been far more sophisticated. And the thing is, Black Adam as portrayed in this movie is really interesting. They just didn't lean into that aspect of his character because, we got to see Dwayne. Everyone wants to see Dwayne The Rock Johnson be Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but Dwayne The Rock Johnson wants to be Black Adam.
Yes.
And write a Black Adam movie that is worthy of the mythology and worthy of the history and worthy of all this. And I feel that it's so frustrating because I feel that audiences, I mean, I've been ensconced in the fan community for my whole life. And there are basically fans. There's two different kinds of fans. There's fans that believe in the elevation of this material, and there's fans that believe in the popcorn nature of it all. And never the two shall meet. And while we all love the base of it all, some people like, I want to see Jedis swinging lightsabers. I'm like, why? We've seen that. How is that interesting? So after a lightsaber duel, then what? You're going to smoke a cigarette? Like, what does that mean? Like, I feel like this show Andor is delving into the entire origins of what does it mean to rebel against a power structure that is insurmountably entrenched and seemingly an enemy that you cannot defeat, and yet there are rebels that are willing to try. What does that mean? And these are heady concepts that I feel are important to delve into, and a lot of the fan base is like, come on, man, I just want to see people cutting each other in half with lightsabers. And I don't think they're wrong, but I would say perhaps you've seen that in this particular franchise. And why not sit down and sit back and go, oh, here's something unexpected. Let me try and enjoy it on its own rather than me imposing expectations I'm never going to get and get mad for that reason. I don't know.
Well, I think you make a lot of good points. I gave the film a 7 out of 10. And the reason is because you're right. It certainly isn't the most intelligent film. It's not. But I also don't
it's fun to watch.
It's fun to watch. I don't think it was ever going to be the most intelligent film, unfortunately.
No, it was never going to be that. No.
And I think that at the end, that could also be another reason why I didn't necessarily care that we saw that other character at the end, because what we saw wasn't indicative of wasn't indicative of anything else other than The Rock being there. I've been waiting for so long to see that character. And, I just kind of looked at it and said, you know what? This might not be, I couldn't put it together, Robert. I couldn't attach the two of them together. I heard what you said about, yes, that would be the ultimate challenge. It would make sense that he might intervene there. But for the context of this film, it felt out of place for me. So, now, ironically, The Rock also won me over. I feel like the girl in the film who's chasing the hot guy, and she has to use her friend to try to get the hot guy, and then she gets the hot guy, and then in the end she doesn't want the hot guy, she wants the other guy, her friend. That's how I feel. And I was not expecting to feel that way, and I always thought that was like alive. You see that storyline a lot, but it happened to me, hypothetically speaking, not for real, but in this film, that's what happened. I was enjoying and still am enjoying The Rock so much. I wasn't expecting him to win me over this way. I didn't go into the film thinking this way, but his approach to this film, his commitment, honestly, to this character,
no doubt,
is something that I haven't seen in a while. And he had this level of, execution of Black Adam. Well, Robert, was he Black Adam to you?
Yes. No, I absolutely, in terms of an actor embodying this character, I thought he was terrific. I absolutely believed him as Black Adam because the character is not exactly nuanced. And he was exactly what I would want from him. He looked the part. He acted the part. His voice. I believed he was Black Adam. My only thing is that because he had so much control over this film and he willed it into existence, essentially, I and it's silly to say because even I laugh at myself saying it. I'm like, we're 22 years after Bryan Singer's X-Men, Raimi's Spider-Man, Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. We're so far beyond that in terms of what superheroic films can be. I felt this film was a throwback. And I think that Dwayne Johnson wanting to bring Superman back and he wanting to play Black Adam, I really felt this is a product of like, it could have come out the same year as Stephen Norrington's Blade. Because the sophistication of it was not there. It was very pulp. It was very pulp sci-fi, this, that, and the other thing. And while I appreciate that, I think the comic book film has moved on. And I felt that the throwback nature of this movie hurt it. Because audiences have had now 22 years of really good science fiction, sci-fi, horror, superhero movies. And this was not that.
Yeah, and you make a good point of this because if we look at the tone, let's say, of two, what I consider very successful films that we've seen, let's say, in this category, of course, it's been almost a year now of No Way Home, incredibly successful, very different tone, excellent writing that we haven't seen in a while. And the other film that I would pick personally would be The Batman.
This movie was so far away from the Batman as to be almost unrecognizable.
Yes, and certainly a different level. Those two films, I think, have a certain level of sophistication to them for a number of reasons. The Batman film, in addition to the writing, just the artistic point of view that the film was shown from, which as an art film, I think it elevated the film. Is going to be something that we'll remember, kind of like the way we remembered the original 1989 Batman. I feel that this one has that level of creativity and approach. For No Way Home, we had a lot of very interesting ethical issues that dealt with growing up, becoming a man. What does it mean to be a man? In essentially is in a modern world now. It was set in 2021, 2022. It wasn't set in 1930. So we're seeing a character now becoming a grown-up and independent after losing.
You mean Spider-Man?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that.
It was theoretically in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would be the modern version of this character, right? Or in the future.
Yeah.
What we were seeing was the idea of what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to now that he cannot go back to Aunt May? He can't go back to those things. He has to remove himself from that and understand what does it mean to get into your first apartment, to have all of those things, those experiences, which he has to learn now. What does it mean, just even for, he's a superhero, but or a character, but even as a normal man, which he is for part of his life. Most of the time, he's just a normal person. He's not, wearing the suit 24/7. What does that mean for this film? For Black Adam, the question that's answered is, could The Rock become Black Adam, and will people enjoy seeing him as Black Adam? But there is no actual dilemma question, as you are pointing out.
That's yes, but no, you're absolutely right about that. And that's what I'm sort of I was missing. I was missing about the film. And I guess I'm always railing about writing, and some people are always like, well, Rob, it's a superhero movie. I just want to check my brain at the door. And I mean, yeah, but I do think that every movie can be made better if it's smarter, if it has better writing.
Certainly.
And I felt that a lot of people, especially people, even Dwayne Johnson himself, he still comes from that mindset. I'm going to give the fans what they want. Even him, if you watch his movies, and I enjoy him as a presence, whether he's with Kevin Hart, whether he's doing something like San Andreas, even Baywatch, terrible film. understand where he's coming from. He's trying to play to the masses like he did when he was a wrestler. He's playing to the crowd. The difference is no one is ever going to take him seriously as an actor. He's the new Arnold Schwarzenegger with no accent. And no one, and the funny thing about Schwarzenegger is the only roles that people took him seriously in were the Terminator and Conan.
Yes.
Because he embodied Conan, and Dwayne Johnson, whenever he plays like, I'm a helicopter pilot in San Andreas, you're just like, come on. No, you're not. No one who looks like you is a helicopter pilot. But you buy it. I'm a skyscraper. I'm a father. I'm, an architect, whatever. Whatever, dude. There's nobody believes. And it's funny because whenever he's in the real world, so when he plays a superhero, it would be very easy to believe in him if the real world, if the rest of the world in the movie was grounded. But with the villain and the army from hell and the Justice Society and all this stuff, there's no grounding in this movie. And what would be interesting is if he comes to the 21st century, which you see that and you see what he's grappling with, but it's not done. You don't believe any of this is real. There's no grounding in this movie anywhere at all. And I think that's the problem. All modern superhero films work best when they are grounded in our reality in some way, shape, or form. And that's a difference from what happens in the 90s. In the 90s, we had these action characters that were larger than life, that could do anything, that they didn't have to be tethered to the real world. But we're beyond that. We're a quarter century beyond that. And our superheroes, as mystical as they might be, even if they were given their powers by Jaimin Hansu in a cave and he was channeling the gods, you still have to believe them. And if they're going to come and interact with humanity, make us believe that if I looked out my window or my garage door and I saw Black Adam, I should believe that he exists in our world today. That's what modern superhero movies have done. I never believed that. I always believed I'm watching a movie. I'm watching a construct. I never entirely bought into this movie, and I was frustrated by that.
Yeah, you make a good point with that as well. And I think that, I think that fans will watch the film and have a sense of relief in watching it because it's free of a lot of the constraints in some of the films that we've been seeing, not in No Way Home and not in the Battison film, but in some of the other superhero films. For example, the Love and Thunder film, where we saw just kind of ridiculous events take place that were kind of unexplainable. But this film is free of that, the hilarity almost for the sake of being hilarious, but no one's laughing at the joke, like with the screaming ghost or the inappropriateness of the context of what we're seeing. I think the relief of seeing a film where it's about the character, where in, Doctor Strange Part 2, where it felt like he was kind of a bystander in his own film. We're not experiencing that. And we have been kind of experiencing a lot of that recently. And I think those things are also things that disturbed fans. And because that's not present in this film, and also because they upped a lot of the action scenes, I think that people are going to kind of go in and come out somewhat relieved from that. But then there are also people like yourself, Robert, and not just people who have read the comics, but who want to see an experience of something that has depth to it, may not get that experience from this.
No, and I look, like I said, I did enjoy the film. I mean, it's fun to watch. There's a lot of great stuff in it, but it just felt like the comic book movie has evolved, and comic book characters have evolved, and I still feel that Dwayne Johnson suffers from his wrestling mentality. And by the way, he hasn't had to do much more than that. I mean, which is not a bad thing. I mean, the guy's an incredible entertainer. He's incredible with the public. He's incredible with talk shows. I mean, if you saw him on Jimmy Fallon when he's dressing up as a little Southern girl promoting, it was hilarious. And he will do anything. I mean, he's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
And I've admired him for years. However, that doesn't mean he recognizes great writing. It doesn't mean like he's a lowest common denominator guy. And
So
there's nothing wrong with that.
let me ask you this question, Robert. And I do kind of ask this question sometimes when we get films, and they're not quite up to par from what we wanted. You know, they were not. Sometimes we see films and we say, you know, here's what could have fixed that.
Yeah.
Could this film be re-edited into something that you could get more depth? It could be something more.
I don't think so, because the conception of the character of Black Adam is, I hate to say it, it's like a comic book. They did not imbue him with a reality in terms of me. Like, let's just say it really happened. Like exactly what happened in the movie, where Black Adam is now in the modern age. 5,000 years have passed or whatever. He's in the modern age. I didn't believe if somebody who comes and can speak the language and all this stuff, has the magical powers to rationalize what's going on, I believe they would have spent the first 2 years or 3 years of their lives just walking around figuring out what the fuck is going on. And a movie can't do that. But as somebody like him, I mean, I get why it went where it went, but it would have been fascinating to lean more into his fish out of water story, where a fish out of water where superheroes exist. Like, here's this guy, this magical, superpowered being that shows up 5,000 years later. What would he do when he suddenly starts realizing, I don't even know where I am and why I'm here and all this stuff? And just walking around the city streets of Take Your Poison, whatever place he was going to walk around, he would be completely fascinated with all the minutia, from stoplights to cell phones to whatever, Diet Coke cans and carbonated. I mean, every single thing would have been something he would have been interested in. But of course, you can't do that. That's nothing good in a movie. But there was very little of that in this film. And I feel like philosophically there could have been something really, but nobody, The Rock's probably like, no. People want to see me kick ass. And I get it. That's his brand. And they do. And I do. And I loved it. And all that was great. The action was great and all that. But the movie was, to me, meaningless. It didn't mean anything. And that's the problem. Is great genre cinema, whether it's science fiction, fantasy, horror, action, thriller, whatever, great genre cinema matters to the audience. It can't be a trifle that you can walk away and 30 minutes later you don't think about again. That movie is never going to make $1 billion. You need to make our audience, and by the way, the genre audience, people that love science fiction, fantasy, horror, superhero, whatever, we're the most forgiving of all audiences. You can show us, you can shovel us giant piles of shit, and we will eat our way through it for a little bit of joy, for a good kill, a clever line, something. We are your core audience, and so is the superhero audience. And I feel that this movie kind of let us all down, because it should have been more sophisticated and better than it was.
I think that might be why I have difficulty with the end credit scene, because I almost feel perhaps that other character doesn't belong in this film.
Well, to be fair, it was after the movie was done. This was added because they finally got a green light. With there's a great friend of my channel, a very high-powered, a mover and shaker in Hollywood, that opened a dialogue with me. I didn't open a dialogue with them, and they told me specifically that on the John Campea show, we have it wrong why Henry Cavill couldn't be Superman. And what this person expressed to me was that it was Toby Emmerich. What happened was Warner Brothers went to Henry Cavill's manager, who's also Dwayne Johnson's manager. Henry Cavill's manager is Dwayne Johnson's ex-wife. And so she manages both Henry Cavill and Dwayne Johnson. And when they were doing the first Shazam, they wanted him. There's a Superman cameo at the end of that movie, and they wanted Henry Cavill to play that part. And his manager, doing what they do, hardballing the studio, said, well, you have an option to make this many movies with Henry Cavill as Superman. And if he shows up in a cameo at the end of Shazam, that fulfills one of his obligations to be Superman in a Warner Brothers movie. And Toby Emmerich, who ran the studio at the time, was so incensed by this, basically said, fuck you to the manager. We are never going to work with Henry Cavill. You will never be Superman again. The head of the studio. So they had to wait, and Dwayne Johnson had to wait and wait until David Zaslav, HBO Max, when AT&T left, they were gone. They were there for a year. Discovery swoops in, and David Zaslav understands the value of talent, and that's when this happened. The movie was already shot, and I'm sure they're like, oh my God, could we shoot an end credit sequence? Who's going to say no to that? And they did.
Right. And
that's why it feels a little out of left field, because it's not incorporated into the movie as a whole.
Okay.
But it does set up like, let's go. It's go time now. Let's have a big fight, or whatever they're going to do. So.
Viola Davis, who I love in these roles with.
Oh my God. I love her face, whether she's playing Amanda Waller or the Woman King. She fucking kicks ass.
So good when she gets on there and she's like, gives her, essentially orders. But yes, hearing her say that, of course, we all knew who it was. My question is, even with its flaws, will this film reinvigorate interest, or at least push the idea of what DC, I guess, the DCEU is trying to do? Will it do that?
No, I don't think it will. I think, look, like Shazam, these are fun movies to watch, popcorn entertainments to be sure, but they're not pushing the brand forward. Although I will say this, I think this is the first step. If this movie makes a lot of money, if it doesn't make much money, and I say a lot of money, we'll know. If it's going to make between 500 and 600 million US worldwide, it'll be okay. I would not be surprised at all if Black Adam shows up in Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Wouldn't be surprised. Because on the same day they shot Henry Cavill walk out of the fog and talk to Dwayne Johnson. Do you think Dwayne Johnson, by the way, his production company is also responsible for Shazam? Do you think that he didn't say, hey, well, we just wrote this scene with me and Henry Cavill. I definitely need to be in Shazam. It might have been scripted already. I would almost say it's a certainty that Black Adam is going to show up at the end. Maybe it's a post-credit scene or not, with the Shazam family. And let's move forward. I think it's going to be great. I would love to see a Henry Cavill movie. I'd love to see him fight The Rock. I just want a great script. Give me a great, succinct, awesome screenplay.
Well, I think that if Cavill does fight the Rock's character, Black Adam, or any other character, Cavill has expressed the fact that he wants creative control on his end, Robert. And I don't see Cavill signing up for a script that he doesn't think is worth it.
No, and I am not. Here's the great catch with all these franchise properties. When the actors that play the main characters in these franchise properties, they misconstrue their importance. You need the actors to play the characters, yes. But the reason that you as an actor became popular in the guise of this character is because the writing and the direction made your character cool enough that people couldn't get enough of you. Yes, they needed you. Yes, they needed your charisma. But you're only as good as your script. And I think Black Adam proves, I think Black Adam could have made $1 billion. It's not going to. It's not going to make $1 billion because it's not satisfying. There's too much wrong with it. And this is not, look, you can say, well, Rob, that's just your opinion. Look, if you love the movie, fine. But it's not just my opinion. It's going to be bared out by the facts. And the fact is only a certain amount of people are going to go to it this weekend. It's going to be successful. But everybody will tell you, well, it was a third less than they hoped for. But still,
Yeah.
I look. By the way, we have so many super chats.
Oh, do we? Oh.
Yeah. I said S-Beam. Dave says, greetings all. RMB, thanks for the content this week. I enjoyed Black Adam. did what it needed to do. Good popcorn movie, and it set the stage for the future. Well, Dave's right, isn't he?
I think so, but I still feel that the post-credit scene feels misplaced in this case, and I don't think I'm going to feel differently about it. I know how I felt. I knew it was coming. You see, that's what's funny about it, that I knew it was coming. And after having seen that film, it didn't feel quite right to me. So as excited as I was to see that character, that confrontation at that moment, or at least in that context, I don't think it's there yet. I don't think they've gone to where this confrontation, there's nothing wrong with it, but it felt off to me. So that was very strange. And as I said, I still feel like that girl in the teen film where she's waiting for the hot guy. The hot guy finally shows up, but then she's like, wait a minute, I really like the other guy. I think it's a very strange kind of feeling, but it could just be the tone of the film didn't match that last scene for me. And that's okay. It's just, it didn't work out the way I thought it was going to. So
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and look, the movie's still entertaining.
Yes.
You know, I make it sound like it's not. It's wildly entertaining. It's just not as fulfilling as other movies of this ilk are now.
Yes.
But it's still fun to watch. And Dwayne Johnson is giving 110%. And it's fun to watch.
He really is. Yes.
So Dave said, greetings all R&B. Oh, did I say that? Thanks for the content.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes.
So everyone's talking about Black Adam. So Bert says, must have been swooning over Ben Miles in Andor, the banker who could be a doppelganger for Chancellor Valorum. Miles was Corporal Townsend in The Crown.
He was stunning. I did watch him as Corporal Townsend, who, as all of you know, was having an affair with Princess Margaret at the time. In the Crown series, he played that role splendidly. Certainly an incredibly handsome, but unfortunately married man who, after the divorce, he and Margaret Rose were not able to, I think it was her and him, were not able to be together anymore. They did everything they could to keep them apart, but he is such a brilliant actor. He was amazing in Andor, very sexy. Another silver fox. You mature men out there, thank you so much for keeping things so exciting for us. We appreciate you so much.
That's good. No, and you're yes, I agree. Mark Spector's Avatar says, all I want to see is, by the way, our friend John says, still having a hard time understanding how Rob can hate L&T so much and then call Black Adam wildly entertaining. Here's the thing. When I watch something, I always take into consideration in terms of what they set out to do. And if they achieve that. And I don't compare and contrast things. I only look at what Black Adam is. And there's a lot of stuff in Black Adam that I was entertained by. Only because I'm an old school comic book fan. I love seeing the Justice Society. I like seeing Black Adam kick ass. I like some of the visuals. So when I'm watching Black Adam, I'm taking it on its own. I'm not comparing and contrasting it with other things. I'm comparing and contrasting with it as a film that's both a fantasy movie and in the superhero genre. How does it all work unto itself? And look, there's movies that I love that I know are bad. Like The Specialist, the Sharon Stone, Sylvester Stallone film. It is a bad movie. It's bad.
Even the love scene in the shower was awful.
Yeah, it's terrible because they're more interested in Stallone's muscles. It's bad. I love it. I love that movie. It's a bad movie.
Yes.
And I will tell you that, and I will watch it. I'm not even going to call it a guilty pleasure. There are things about it I just like. Yeah. And someone would say, "Well, why do you like them, Rob?" They're not, because when I look at it, I already go in, and within 5 minutes, I'm like, "Okay, this is a bad movie." I get it's a bad movie, and it's ridiculous. None of it works. But because I'm sitting here anyway, I'm going to decide to see this movie as not bad, but what I love about it. And so while I would never recommend it in the pantheon of movies, it's not great. But there are things in it. There's things in The Specialist that I really, really like. I would never try and convince someone else that they should like it because it's not good. So when I watch Black Adam, I could sit there and judge it against X-Men 2 or Captain America Civil War or Winter Soldier and Infinity War and Endgame. It doesn't hold up, and it wouldn't be fair. And I've always said, just because you have a superhero movie, I mean, that's like saying I have a cop movie or a lawyer movie. That runs the gamut of different kinds of stories that can be told. So, you have to ask yourself, what is the story that Black Adam wanted to tell, and did they succeed? And I would say they kind of did halfway. There's a lot of stuff in it where I liked where Dwayne Johnson was used well. He kicks ass. He kills some motherfuckers. I like that. It's not good, though, overall. And it's not good because the writing, the people who wrote the screenplay and the direction, it didn't sell that story. And that's the problem, for the most part, with most movies. The scripts aren't good, and the directors can't make them better. And we get what we get. So, Mark Spector's Avatar, when he talks about Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker kicking ass, for instance, he says, all I want to see is old Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker kick ass. Why? I mean, I get why. I mean, but why is that all you want to see? And how is an old, like, I would dare say, when I saw the end of The Force Awakens and Luke is there on Achito and Rey gives him his lightsaber or is going to hand it to him, I was intrigued by that. But when it turned out to not be that way, why is it that Luke Skywalker, the only way we're going to be satisfied is if he has a lightsaber in his hand and he's kicking ass?
I don't know. I mean, we did see him do that in the Mandalorian series. We did get that.
Yeah, but that was after, though, The Last Jedi.
Yes.
And I get it, but I really think that we've already seen that. In my mind, we already know Luke can do that. I mean, I would have been more interested to see, like, after Jedi, how did Luke walk the path of a Jedi? Now that he's confronted Vader, and as Yoda said, he's now a full-fledged Jedi. What does that mean? In watching, I feel like in the Star Wars universe, we were betrayed and we were not allowed. I mean, we should have been able to watch Luke's journey as a Jedi.
Absolutely. And I think we were kind of robbed of that, not just in the sequel trilogy, but in The Mandalorian, because I thought we were going to get a little bit more of that, especially with Grogu, who left school, with Luke too early. He needed to be there for a few years just to kind of get right back on track. And Grogu is going to make whatever decisions he wants for his life. But I felt that his relationship with Luke could have been a little bit longer. We could have seen them together for a few years at least. Yeah. And we could understand what direction or what path Luke is coming from, and really understand more of what he wants to do. We saw kind of the school being built, but it would be great to see his new teachings, new philosophy. I kind of view him as someone who has a reinterpretation of what it means to be a Jedi, as you're saying, Robert. And it would have been great to have seen that in a live action context, but unfortunately, we didn't get that. I feel like we were robbed of it a little bit. Maybe he'll go back to school with Luke. Who knows? Maybe Grogu will go back, but he should have been there, and we could have had that question answered very easily. Even over maybe 2 or 3 seasons, Grogu didn't necessarily need to be there when Mando goes back to confront Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians. He didn't necessarily have to have Grogu with him at that time. I think that its story can be somewhat more complex rather than trying to wrap it up with a nice little bow as they're trying to do.
I am with you 100%. Like 100% with that. And I really think that's the problem, in that everybody wants different things out of these entertainments. And when you're watching Star Wars, and they're trying to do something different, I think it's very hard. The same is true of Star Trek. Everybody is looking back toward the originals, and they're like, oh, I have to make it just like Empire, or I have to make it just like Jedi, or I have to make it just like this. And when you do that, and how can you not? If you're a human being and you're going to work on Doctor Who or Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever franchise it is, you go back and look at that franchise. And I kind of think that's always a mistake, because all you need to understand is who these characters are. And what I've told people, I'm like, if you want to write a great franchise property, take the franchise out of it. Like concentrate on your characters. If there's like some erotic love triangle in the Star Wars universe, and Mon Mothma's husband finds out that her old flame from college and them have started up again, forget the fact that they're in the Star Wars universe. Write some body heat, jealous husband kind of a story. And when you get that story correct, then you caress in the Star Wars elements. But it's the human story, the story of jealousy and recriminations and revenge. All of that is important. The Star Wars-ness of it all will come later. But nobody does that. Like, wow, well, this character's got a lightsaber. This character flies a TIE fighter, or whatever. Like, that's not the way to begin great storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think part of that speculation for the Kenobi series, the idea that he is this character that didn't have that kind of story behind him. There wasn't anything behind him.
Right.
We didn't really get to know him any better. We saw other characters in the series and we got to know them a little bit better, but I don't think he, one can argue that he was able to move on now and protect Luke, but he was already doing that when we got there. So
right, exactly.
I don't think that if there was some sort of confrontation, he wouldn't just go into the desert and pull out that lightsaber anyway, if he had to, if push came to shove. So there was nothing. I don't think it was a matter of principle. I think he was there for a reason. It was to protect Luke. So certainly I wasn't convinced when he had to go bury this lightsaber out in the desert kind of scenario. That didn't mean anything to me. We know that any time he could snap a person's neck if he wanted to. So, there is that little discrepancy, but, he certainly is a character that had more depth and we didn't get any of that. So, we experienced that also with Boba Fett. We didn't get that level of depth. Yes, the story with the Sand People was great. I certainly thought that was a nice story, but to be honest with you, it didn't have as much depth as this character clearly has. I felt that we got more depth of him in the prequels.
Yes.
More or less as a child, a more profound experience, right? Your father dies in front of you. That was one of the most horrific, scary things. And they kept referring to it. I thought we were going to get something that would build on how he felt, since we didn't see him in live action growing up or something like that. We didn't get that, but they kept referring to it. So we didn't get that depth that we needed, but we're getting that depth in the Andor series. We're getting that level of depth of these characters. And we also know their motivations, which is something that we don't always get in every series as well. We know exactly why Mon Mothma is doing what she's doing. We kind of know why Andor is doing what he's doing. We know what the Gorman, I call him the Gorman character because he reminded me of the character in Aliens, where, who does the jumps. He was in charge of everybody. And he, but we know what his motivation is. We know everybody's motivation, more or less. And that's something that we also haven't always gotten in Star Wars ever since it was bought by Disney. A lot of the characters we couldn't explain. And then they would sort of do, this hat dance of trying to figure out, well, the reason why this person is doing it is because this reason, but they didn't actually have a reason because they never wrote it down. They didn't know the reason.
No, they didn't. Hey, can you pontificate? I'm going to read one more and give me. I'm just dealing with.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. And let me just. I'm going to read this next one. I'm going to come back. Everyone's asking great questions. Now, have you seen the Interview with a Vampire TV series?
I have seen part of it, Robert.
Okay. This next question is because I want to pontificate on this.
Yes.
Martin Molina says, have any of you all seen the AMC Interview with a Vampire TV series? I love listening to you all, and I hope that you have a great weekend. Rob, I am currently reading Dust. Well, Martin, let me just, before I just, God, they're fucking, these dogs. Dust is a book by Charles Pellegrino, the scientist who posited that mosquitoes locked in amber, you could use the blood to revive the dinosaurs, as a real theory that they used in Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. He wrote a book which is one of the, I don't know why it unnerved me so much. He wrote a book called Dust. And the premise of the book is, for whatever reason you don't really know, all of the insects in the world die off. And you think about it, what would that do to our ecosystem? And the book begins, the way I remember it, and Martin, you could probably speak to this. It begins on like a beach. And there's like a couple frolicking on this beach. I don't know where it is, at Miami or something. And they see in the distance what looks like a dark cloud, like a fog rolling down the beach. And it turns out it's dust mites that are in our beds. They're everywhere. And this cloud of dust mites rolls over this couple on the beach and strips them of their skin, like almost instantaneously. Because dust mites are fed on by all the other insects in the world that are bigger. But without the insects, because I believe the dust mites are actually considered arachnids. So they're not insects. Arachnids are different. So they are just eviscerated. And that's like the opening scene of this book. And it talks about basically the fall of humanity because all the insects have died out. And it's kind of like this pulp novel. But when I read it, there was something really unnerving about ecological collapse and what it could lead to. And I thought it was an awesome book. So Martin's reading it. So Martin, good on you for reading that book. And you should all read Dust. But give me a minute while I get up. But I would ask you to pontificate about the new AMC Interview with a Vampire series. Give me a minute. I will be right back. And by the way, yes, that is a picture of me directing William Shatner on the set of Free Enterprise. So I will be back in 30 seconds. I'm just going to.
All right. Yes.
So pontificate, Interview with the Vampire. Go.
I will. So I did check out the new version of Interview with a Vampire, and the film, that version that we've seen before, had pretty much A-list Hollywood actors, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise in it. And this television show, I feel, has mainly unknown actors in it. So that was one big difference. Another thing was that I'm not quite sure what the original race of Louis was, but they chose to change it from what we saw in the film, from someone who was white to a black character. And the man who plays the character comes from a very well-off family in, I think it's Louisiana. And this vampire kind of confronts him and is attracted to him. Now, I don't know why the vampire is attracted to him. But what I can say is that the vampire kind of takes a very interesting approach into kind of swaying Louis to his side. And what he does is that he tells Louis, this is whatever year it was, the 1700s, perhaps, you aren't treated nicely here in this land, in this town that you live in. Everybody treats you like you're a second-class citizen. And so Louis takes these comments to heart. He listens very carefully to what the vampire is saying. And the vampire kind of trumps him up to a point where he pretty much falls in love with this vampire. The vampire is saying things to him like, I can see how important you are as an individual. You have strength as a man. You have ability to do things in this environment. You are remarkable. Nobody here knows how remarkable you are. I think you're the most remarkable person ever. And so this convinces the Louis character to pretty much start a relationship with him. And they are very candid and very frank about it, that it is a homosexual relationship between Louis and the vampire. And, this is the first time that we're seeing it on the screen. There is kissing, they have an intimate relationship. We certainly didn't see that in the movie between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. And I think that if we did see something like that between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, it would have been somewhat shocking and very revolutionary in the 90s. So Robert, I was telling everybody that this new version of Interview with a Vampire, they have kind of race swapped Louis. Formerly the roles were played by Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, who were big stars at the time. Every woman in America and anybody who likes men in America was certainly fawning over how attractive both of them looked. They had very strong sexual chemistry, but we never had them cross the line of having sort of an intimate relationship, which was, I guess, assumed. But in the television show, Louis is a black man, an attractive black man whose family lives in Louisiana.
Grey Worm from Game of Thrones.
Yes, and he is stunningly attractive. And he pretty much falls in love with a vampire. And the way that the vampire does it is that he tells him, he says, look, you're a black man who's alive during this time, and everybody treats you like garbage, and you are so capable of more. I can see how beautiful you are. And eventually the Louis character is in love with him and kisses him in the story, and they have an intimate relationship. And I think that there are a lot of people who are going to be very uncomfortable seeing this on the screen, but legitimately, this is how they wanted to portray this story. Now, I haven't gotten past the first 2 or 3 episodes, but it is very different is a very different tone to this show compared to the movie. If those of you who have seen the movie and are big fans of it, that had a very different feel to it for me.
And the books, because Vampire Lestat, which is the second Vampire Chronicles novel, is one of my favorite books I ever read. And the first Interview with the Vampire I quite love. Queen of the Damned, to me, it's so funny because I actually met Anne Rice when Queen of the Damned came out. She did book signings, even in Pasadena, and I had her sign my volumes, which, by the way, I lost all 3 of them in my storage locker massacre, but whatever.
No,
I know.
no.
But here's my problem with the show. It's beautifully made, really well acted. It does not take place in the antebellum South.
No.
It takes place in 1910 New Orleans. There's
yes.
Again, here's what first of all, I've always thought of the vampire mythology, and you can change mythologies as you go along, but one of the things about being a vampire, when you're one of the undead, sexuality is something that you've lost. For whatever reason. I mean, maybe when you drink blood, you it's like Viagra. You're as a man, your member gets engorged and you can perform sexually. But the whole idea of seducing somebody and drinking their blood is a replacement for the act of sex.
Okay.
That's how I've always seen vampirism. And there's been, postmodern vampire stories, but for the most part, you're undead. So in being undead, there are certain pleasures of the flesh of mortal men and women that you give up when you're a vampire. This story wants to, my objection to it, I don't mind hot, sweaty, gay sex. Bring it on. I like all kinds of human sexuality. I'll watch all of it. Give it to me. But in the case of this show, the fact that Louis and Lestat become lovers seems to me the antithesis. You're subverting, you're forgetting what the vampire mythology, the whole idea of a vampire should be. And in a way, it's diminishing. Look, no doubt the acting is great. No doubt the show is handsomely mounted. But almost more than any other show, I'm like, okay, vampirism is not an allegory for LGBTQ. And the relationship that Louis and Lestat have, even though as homoerotic as it is, and let's make no mistake, it totally is that, which I'm fine with. But what I find that's missing, first of all, the fact, I find it really interesting that they removed it from the antebellum South because they don't want to deal with slavery, which seems cowardly because, they were Lestat and Louis were drinking the blood of slaves. They were drinking the blood of the people that were working for them. So they didn't want to deal with that. And on the other hand, they want to embrace this LGBTQ thing, which is fine. But I'm like, that's hitting the nail on the head. You're missing the subtleties. The fact that Louis and Lestat, like Lestat might have absolutely lusted after Louis, but what he wants is a companion in eternity.
Yeah.
And the
you
fact
feel
that,
it's focusing more on a gay story versus a vampire story.
yeah, and that's fine. But I'm like, the whole point is allegory. Nobody understands allegory anymore. And I feel like I'm watching this. I'm watching, like, I feel like the showrunners, and this is where people get, you have so many other YouTube channels and people get angry when they talk about pushing an agenda. And I'm like,
Yes.
The great thing about science fiction, fantasy, and horror is the allegorical nature of it all. And vampirism stands in for a lot of things. You know, that was the whole point of that. Especially is how vampirism has been used in modern films. I mean, one of my favorites in The Hunger. You know, in The Hunger, Catherine Deneuve, by the way, seduces a woman. So she's been with David Bowie, her lover, for 350 years. They take showers together, but you never see them fucking. They hunt together, and they kill together, and they shower together. But they don't have sexual congress in the movie because they can't. It doesn't, they don't get to orgasm as the undead. That's what they
Oh,
give.
I see what you're saying. And the reason why Susan Sarandon was able to is because she had not been turned into a vampire yet.
That's right. And what happens is, and here's the big thing, Marion Blaylock, the great tragedy of The Hunger is that Marion Blaylock is the alpha vampire. She's immortal. And the humans she turns have a lifespan. They only get to exist with her for 300-400 years. And then they age rapidly, but they don't die. And then she puts all of her lovers in these coffins and carries them around. And when she says, here, take care of these people, her lover from 2,000 years ago is still there, but not lover, the person that she was with. And the great tragedy of vampirism is you have to live forever without love. You have no companionship. And so in this show, it's like they're like, okay, we're going to make a vampire show, but let's show a lot of hot, sweaty, gay sex because we can get away with it. And I'm like, that's great, but why not make a show about two guys that like are hot for each other and are detectives or something? Why make it a vampire show when vampirism is allegorical for many different things and you throw that out the window? Okay, you're immortal and you get to fuck and have a great time. That's not fair, and that misses the point of what vampirism is supposed to do as a literary device.
Well, I also don't think that they would care once you become a vampire. Like, it doesn't matter what sex anybody is anymore because you're now no longer human. Those things you cared about as a human, you don't care about that anymore. You're now a different entity.
Absolutely.
None of this stuff matters anymore.
100%, and that was what The Hunger showed. Marion Blaylock was beyond gender and sexuality. She just wanted to not be alone. Mm-hmm. And she over thousands of years had taken companions that were both male and female, and it wasn't about their sexuality. It was about, can I vibe with you? Can I be friends with you? Can I spend hundreds of years of time with you?
Right.
And I feel that the Interview with a Vampire, first of all, I do not get moving the vampire story from the antebellum South to 1910 New Orleans. I'm like, you're cowards. Because you're cowards. Because you want to make one of the characters a black man, fine, but you couldn't do that in the antebellum South. And so which, by the way, again, it's all these people, these creators. You want to adapt Interview with a Vampire, and what do you first do? Oh, well, it's too hard to tell a story about these people in the antebellum South. We don't want to get canceled. So let's move it to 1910 Louisiana. I'm like, you know what? You people are cowards. You're cowards, and you're not. And this is a lot of the people are always asking me. I don't hate everybody, but what's really interesting in the case of Interview with a Vampire, the very creators on one hand want to support the LGBTQ. I'm all for that. But you had to fuck your show up. You had to ruin what Anne Rice did in order to make your agenda be first. And that's what people don't understand. What our a lot of channels object to on YouTube, and it's like your desire to be activists superseded your desire to adapt Anne Rice's work and the idea of vampirism. You wanted to stand on your soapbox and make it about something that it wasn't about. That's what pisses people off. And as somebody who's read all the Vampire Chronicles, you know, and I've read all the books, and even the Mayfair Witches and all the Anne Rice's stuff. By the way, not all of the Anne Rice books, Nemnoch the Devil, they're not all great. In my mind, Interview with the Vampire and Vampire Lestat are Star Wars and Empire of the Vampire Chronicles. The rest are the rest of Star Wars. They're not all great. Even Queen of the Damned, which they made into a movie. So this show I was really excited about. But I'm like, wow, again, a show, these showrunners have now, why did you have to change? I mean, Interview with the Vampire, if memory serves, was published in 1976. It was set in the antebellum South. Why did you change it?
Well, the very interesting thing about it is that the character makes a specific point to say that he didn't think of himself as having a gay relationship. And I thought to myself, you know, that doesn't even make any sense in the context that we're seeing. His comment wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have thought about having a gay relationship. His comment really would have been, I never thought that I would be a vampire. I think that's the thing that he would have said.
Yes. Yes.
And also, I remember in Interview with a Vampire, the movie, that Antonio Banderas was a vampire in Europe.
Armand. He played
as Armand. And I've never seen anybody so sexual without even trying to be sexual. He was like, I swear to God, I don't even know how Brad Pitt walked away from Antonio Banderas during the takes. Robert.
I wouldn't have. I would have been like, bro, take me. I'll be your disciple. I'll be your little, I'll be your immortal lackey. I'll do whatever you want.
Well, I think that Antonio Banderas, his performance was as strong as Tom Cruise's performance. I do like Brad Pitt, but I felt that his performance fell short a few times in the movie, maybe because he was new or, you know, still learning techniques. But compared to Tom and to Antonio, he didn't have, you know, the same level of performance for me, especially when he turns down Antonio Banderas. His reaction to him as he walks away or explains to him why he can't do this. I wasn't convinced by his answer. I mean, what did you think? Did you think when he told him, as much as this appeals to me, I have to decline, was he trying to convince himself to leave?
Maybe. I mean, here's the thing. If you can be immortal and get laid, what's the problem? I mean, a lot of people need killing. The whole point is that there has to be an element of tragedy in losing your mortality. You're essentially giving up your humanity. If you're telling a story about vampires that can be immortal and fuck and have all the pleasures of the flesh, what are they giving up? Daylight? Who cares? You know, just be fabulous. There are people that party all night, the rich aristocracy, party all night. You know, the whole point is that vampires have to give up. You lose the pleasures of the flesh. You lose the pleasures of mortality. And when you become undead, you are cold. You are bereft of warmth until you drink blood, and for the moments that blood is not room temperature anymore inside you, you are filled up with warmth. And the idea that no, we can still fuck. It bothers me. I'm like, you've missed the point. There's no tragedy in being immortal. Hell, man, if you told me that I could still get laid and be immortal, I would turn over I'd be a vampire tomorrow. I'm a vampire anyway. What? I don't need to see the daylight anymore. I'll walk. I will move to Europe. I'll walk around Paris when the sun goes down. Who cares? Because if you can have everything, if you can have the pleasures of the flesh and be immortal, then what is the point of a vampire myth? Why are you telling that story?
It's a good question. I do want to ask you about another series, Robert, and I don't know if you've seen it, but you probably brought it up last week. Did you see Werewolves by Night?
You mean the show? Yeah. Yes.
And I know you were asking about that a week or so ago, and I hadn't seen it, but I just watched it.
You did. By the way, you did your show this week about Werewolf by Night.
I did.
And good show, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, if you have not watched, Mmmm has a show on Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern time on here on the Ladies of the PGS with Leanna Creel. Tell us about that show.
Well, the show is essentially a show about science fiction, fantasy, horror, and I try to kind of look at sex and sexual situations, but I also talk about other elements as well that are interesting to all of us and the IPs that we love, of course, Star Wars and Star Trek. So the show is an hour-long show where we kind of talk about things that have happened over the past week that we're interested in, but also seem to be conversations that the PGS is also having, more or less. So that's what the show is about, and it's been a great show to do, Robert. I'm enjoying every minute of the show.
I'm glad. I mean, I'm so proud to be hosting it here, and I'm glad you're doing it. I just want to see the audience is going to get bigger every week. We have to grow it, as we're getting more and more. We're getting more subscribers. By the way, this channel is less than 1,000 subscribers away from 50,000.
50,000, yes, Robert. It's so exciting to see the channel growing.
Of course, all the little things. I'm going to start doing 10-minute videos they're going to be called Robservations 10 4. It's going to be 10, the word 10. The number 4, and then you, because it's a Prince thing. 10 for you. Where I'm going to, people always ask me, well, how can I start watching Star Trek? It's so daunting. So I'm going to do top 10 lists called 10 for you from my perspective. Like, what are the best 10 episodes of the original series of Star Trek, the first season, that I can watch to get into Star Trek? Because I guess ask this question all the time.
Right.
So it's going to be, what are your 10 favorite X-Men comics? What are your 10 favorite Prince records in order or whatever? What are your 10 favorite science fiction novels? So it's going to be 10 for you. And because these little short videos get people to subscribe to the channel, it gets a lot of fan interaction, and people keep asking me, and I'm like, and I always say, oh my God, one day I'm going to do my top 10 list. So, and I forget who sent me somebody should send me I forget who said it was on Twitter. They said you should call it 10 for you. And I'm like, that's what I want to call it.
Right.
10, because I like that 10 for you. Could be kind of clever. If you're a Prince fan and you understand the for you part, because that was the name of his first album. And then,
for you.
Yeah, then the for and the you is a Prince. You don't have to know what it is. People are like, what does that mean, Rob? It doesn't matter. It just know that it's going to be a top 10 thing. And then also, a week from Sunday, Whining About Movies is coming back finally.
Yes.
Elizabeth and I are doing Whining About Movies, and we're going to do Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to be our first. And I don't know.
Wow.
We're going to start out maybe once a week. But for those of you who don't know, Whining About Movies, my girlfriend Elizabeth and I, we spend an hour talking about a movie. We review it, and then we interact with you guys while we share a bottle of wine.
Yes.
So that's what we do.
Yes,
And
I love that show.
we did like 150 episodes, and then we stopped. But that's why I haven't implemented them, but I have new microphones. And I've got 2 Shure microphones, one for each of us. I've got a mixing board, thanks to Connie Sang. I've got more expensive technology. Here in the new Robservatory, there's going to be more, not just flat white lighting, but there's all kinds of things. I know, it's going to be all new. And the thing is, I've already had it. Like, I'm moving things around. I took all the home theater equipment out of here and put it in the house, and so. It's
exciting, Robert. I love it. I love whining about movies, and I actually rewatched some of them. They're great to watch over and over again.
We only use one mic, so the sound was bad. And I'm like, now that we have two $500 microphones or whatever. It's going to be with a mixing board. It's just going to sound better. I've got multiple cameras to shoot us, so it's going to be a better show.
It sounds exciting. And Robert, you also have a members only chat coming up this weekend as well, right?
Yes, in 11 hours and 7 minutes. So if you are a member of this channel, because you can become a member at any level, we have bi-weekly member chats. And thanks to Roberto Suarez, tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And how it works is, if you're a member of the channel, you can come into a member chat, and we send you a link, and we just hang out. And usually they last 3 to 4 hours, and people raise their hands, and you get 10 minutes to speak. You can say whatever you want. You can talk to me directly. You can talk to the crowd. You can talk to whatever. But so, and then we interact, and I mean, I have to limit it to 10 minutes because otherwise we'd never leave, and I've got stuff I have to do. But so we try and do it bi-weekly, and then I'll do another show tomorrow night, and then we got Let's Get Physical Media on Sunday with Dieter. But I'm I've been doing a lot more Robservations, and I'm going to try and keep the show going, and I've been doing these little quick vignettes for the John Campea show, and it's been...
I love those, Robert. I love that we get to see a glimpse inside of the team on the show.
They've been so fun. Thank God Taylor Gonzalez, who's a new addition to the team, who's John's assistant. He's very funny. He's very flamboyant. He's very smart. I was going to be working with him on designing Hollywood. He started working for that's where I first met him. And then when Martika couldn't keep him on, John interviewed him at her behest and brought him on the team, and I was a big fan of him. He actually went to Pasadena City College, and he was he wrote for the newspaper there, and he sent me some articles. People don't know this about him, but he's a great writer, and he wrote really funny. His pieces were, I loved his sense of humor and his whole, like there was, like, he knows nothing about sports. He hates sports. But he had to cover sports for his journalism class. So he was saying he had to cover a baseball game. And he wrote this article. He goes, all the things I'd rather be doing as I sit here and watch this 3-hour baseball game. And it was hilarious. And it was like one of the most read pieces. It was one of the most downloaded pieces ever from that college newspaper. And even the coach of the baseball team sought him out and said, that article was hilarious. and then he found like there was some like boarded up door or some door in the college that had never been opened and no one knew what was behind it. So he's like, I'm going to find out what it is. And I'm like, oh, I love this guy. And when I first met him, he was working with Martika, and we went out. We had like a 6-hour wine-soaked lunch, Martika, Taylor, and I'm like, I love this guy. And so his sensibility, when we started doing these, he's always planning things and putting stuff around the studio. And he started like, what if we did these vignettes? And I'm like, all right. And so suddenly we just started shooting these things, and we make them up as we go. Like, we'll throw out a premise, and like the one we did today, we went and Jonathan Voico and Taylor and I went and got tacos. And I said, if we go up, I said earlier, we go up to the top of the street there, there's the hills there, there's an equestrian center, and we can shoot this video. It'll be funny. It'll be outside. And we did. It took us 5 minutes. We put it up and hilarious, and people love it. And I'm like, why aren't we doing this every day?
Yes. So, it's great. It's great that you're doing that, because a lot of times I can't watch the entire show, but I can watch smaller videos and kind of get a sense of what's going on. But Robert, tell us what you have coming up on your next Designing Hollywood show.
Ruth Carter. She is the Academy Award-winning costume designer of Black Panther. She was also the costume designer on Wakanda Forever. She is an incredible woman. She began her work in Hollywood working for Spike Lee on his second feature, School Days, in the late 80s. And she has, because of that, people like Ernest Dickerson, the director of photography, who later became a director himself. She basically, I mean, she's an activist and she's an artist, but just by sheer force of will and who she ended up being in proximity to, she has worked with every major black filmmaker and black actor from the last 35 years.
Right.
And she's incredibly talented, and she was the first black woman to win an Academy Award for costume design at the Academy Awards for the work she did on Black Panther.
Right.
She, first of all, she's just an incredible talent. Very, very interesting woman. Beautiful. And I loved her. And, you know, again, doing these, hardly anybody watches them. And I understand. I mean, I get it. Costume design is a very specific thing, but I feel so fortunate to be doing these shows. And thank you to Marilyn Vance, who, again, I started talking to Martika because she was a costume designer. I mean, I even said to Marilyn when I first met her, I said, you know, no one would know what Eurotrash terrorists look like if you hadn't done such a great job doing the costumes for Die Hard. And people would laugh and go,
Pretty Woman, and for The Breakfast Club, just to name a
Ferris
few
Bueller's
more.
Day Off. I mean,
yes.
She's
those classic films.
Predator.
She has pretty much shaped our ideas and perceptions of what it means to really kind of being alive at that time too, in the 80s and 90s, for sure.
Oh, and I got to interview Ellen Mirojnick, who is, in my mind, in the 80s, there were two women. It was Marilyn Vance and Ellen Mirojnick who defined in the 80s and 90s what costume design was. And by the way, Ellen's a kick in the pants too. And thank you for Martika and Marilyn to let me interview her. She did. You can't see it, but I got my Sharon Stone from Basic Instinct, the quarter scale statue behind me. Ellen Mirojnick did the costume designs for Basic Instinct. I was like,
oh, wow.
But wow. Anyway. Now, by the way, we still have some. We went on for Interview with the Vampire a lot. But Tom Jr. Jackson says, do you think season 2 is going to be the same or with more fan service aside from the time jumps? I don't know if you're talking about Andor or House of the Dragon, but I don't think there's going to be many. In season 2 of Andor, we're going to see 4 years. They're going to cover 4 years. In House of the Dragon, there's going to be no more time jumps. And in Andor, I mean, that's it. Like I said, but so I don't think we're going to see more time jumps or not. Beyond Comics 2099 is a Sony, who has his own comic he's been publishing in Sweden, says, the best trio on YouTube, see you at the MOC, the member-only chat.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to Sony. I always love seeing you. You always put a smile on my face. Travis Rayner says, did you notice there were only humans in the Imperial Senate? Oh, no. In the distance, you saw aliens.
Really?
There were not just humans. There were aliens. If you looked, people who left when Mon Mothma was speaking.
So early days, I guess they still allowed. I thought he meant in the Imperial Security Board, but yeah, maybe you're right. In the Senate.
I mean, I honestly don't think. I don't think there's some weird humans only bent to this. I think what they're trying to do, because we do see, look, in the first episode of Andor, you meet a giant hulking alien. Oh, you just had me stand here. You know, that first episode. Oh, you know. So there are aliens there. I just think they're trying to downplay the alien influence to keep that verisimilitude going. And, you know, we've seen aliens throughout. They're just kind of in the distance.
Yes, and Tom Jr. Jackson's question was about Andor.
Okay, so yeah, this first season is the first year, and then the second season is either this year is the first 2 years, and then I think its next season is 4 years. Each 3 episodes is a year. I think that's the way they want to do it.
Certainly.
Stub McShave says that in this episode of Andor was the first time the stormtroopers felt threatening. I agree, man. I even tweeted, never cross a fucking shore trooper, man. I mean, if I was the problem with, I mean, me thinks the rebel doth protest too much. He should have just shut up and said, hey man, I don't know what's going on. I'll just stand here. I got no beef. Whatever you need to do. I was just going over there. Let me just stand here until everything's gone. I've got no problem.
Robert,
shut up.
Tom Jr. Jackson is asking whether or not you and I know that the finale of the House of the Dragon series had been leaked online.
Yes. Don't talk to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people are like, it's as bad as season 8 of Game of Thrones. I'm like, no, it's not. It's gonna be the first episode I watch live in my new movie room. I had this 65-inch OLED Dolby Vision TV sitting here for 6 months, not hooked up the way I want it. Now it's mounted to the wall in our new media room.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, I painted the room up. It's got the Dolby Atmos sound system. It's gonna be the first time it's gonna rock the house. When you come back next time, you're gonna love it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
And boy, watching 4K movies, I'm like, ooh, yeah. And I talked to a friend of mine who deals with home theater, and there's enough room to put. It's so funny. We were talking about projectors, and I was telling him about the one I want. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, that's only like $13,000." I'm like, "Oh, good." Like, he's like, "You have enough room in that room." And yeah, it's a business, totally. And I go, "Hey, Elizabeth, good news. These new Sony laser projectors that I want for the home theater room, the one I want's only $13,000." And she just looks at me like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, isn't that great?" and because in our media room, I'm like, "Yeah, it's great to have a 65-inch wall mount. It's awesome, OLED." And I'm like, the wall mount, I'm like, it can fit an 83-inch OLED too. and we just have to get it. And she's just looking at me like, no. And now I'm talking about the silvered screen I want. And I'm like, look, I can put it up so it'll drop down from the ceiling. I'm going to do masking. So it depends. And she's just looking at me like, we're mortgage poor, dude. We're mortgage poor. Like, you can't buy anything. Don't buy anything. I let you buy Blu-rays and 4Ks because I get to watch them. But you can't buy anything. No action figures, no models. I'm like, Thank God she doesn't watch this show. But she's right. I'm mortgage poor. And I'm like, she looks at me like I'm like, yeah, it's just a $13,000 laser projector. It's awesome. That's not gonna fly. Anyway, don't tell anyone.
I won't say anything.
Don't say anything. So yes, Stubble, the stormtroopers were threatening, but Andor, I have to say, my man Cassian was a little sketchy. I would have arrested him too. He should have just shut the fuck up.
He got nervous.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yes, sir, I will stay right here. Even when he's walking, he was looking like a sketchathon. He's like looking everywhere. What he did was he just needs to saunter up. Everyone knows if the pokey is around you, you just walk up. Hey, what's up? How you doing? You don't act like you've done anything wrong. I know it's hard for people. You just stroll. Just stroll. I learned that from my dad. My dad was the best stroller of all time. He could walk into any room. I mean, my dad was hands in his pockets. He would just shuffle. How are you? It's almost like he was stoned, but he wasn't. He was just a great stroller. He could get in anywhere. Kenneth Colton sends in a super chat. Thanks, Ken. Says, hi, Rob. Boss man Rockwell, he's gone, I'm sorry. Black Adam had so much potential. From a writing perspective, it was awful. I'm stoked for the House of the Dragon finale, and Andor continues to slay. Episode 8 will be amazing. Well, what's interesting, I think it will. Episode 8 is the beginning of the last of the 3-episode arcs, and then the 2-part finale. Don't know what it's going to be about. I can't wait. So, yeah, all good. Sounds good to me. You're excited about Andor like we all are, yeah?
Yes, and I'm excited about House of the Dragon like crazy. I can't wait. I am hooked on House of the Dragon.
It's so good.
I can't get enough of Christian Cole. I love that character.
Oh, I'll bet you. I know. I get it. I see you.
There are a lot of attractive men in this series. Even Patty Cassadine, who played the king, unfortunately had the prosthesis on, and everybody's talking about how he's going to win an award for his performance as the king. But even that man is attractive. They just made him look less attractive for the role. But there are a lot of attractive men. Just the other day I was talking about Toussaint, who plays Corlys.
Who's, by the way, coming back. The sea snake is not gone. That man has the greatest dreads on television.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Bring Corlys back.
Absolutely. So we certainly have had a wonderful a bunch of eye candy. Matt Smith always looks fantastic. He also was in The Crown, as we've spoken about before. But
Yeah.
certainly a lot of the characters and men in the series have been absolutely wonderful. The guy's name, I think, is Frankel. His name is Frankel, who plays Christian Cole. He's amazing. Certainly a person who cares about this character so much. But I like his fierceness, Robert, when he has that passion in him and he just unleashed it on that poor guy who got in his way. He's not a character I would want to piss off, Robert. I would want to stay very clear away from him. And now that the Queen is single, I have a feeling she's going to have a much more intimate relationship with Cole going forward. That's just my prediction. But honestly, I think that he is absolutely irresistible to any woman. I think that the Queen has probably been wanting him that way. After all, she's willing to take her socks and shoes off for a man if she has to. What else, Robert, would she be willing to take off?
Laris is a douche. I can't wait. That guy, here's the thing. All of you out there talking about how Laris is the new middle finger or little finger, that guy's a douche, and Allison is going to get rid of him at the first time, because here's the thing. It's one thing to be a Machiavellian, manipulative douchebag who can, like, with your finger on the pulse of the Seven Kingdoms. It's another thing to gloat about it. That guy cannot be trusted. He might have a billboard on his fucking forehead going, "I'm a treacherous bastard. I killed my brother and father." Don't trust that guy. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but Laris has got to go. And no one knows it more than Allison. I mean, every time she sits there while he masturbates over her feet, she's like, "Motherfucker, you are going to go." She's just waiting for the perfect time. And by the way, my new favorite thing in the world is to watch Allison and Rhaenyra as the actresses that play those characters on, like, together doing press.
Yes,
because Rhaenyra, the actress that plays Rhaenyra, is non-binary.
Yes,
and I love her, and she's her partner's a boy, a guy, a film director, and the two of them together, and Allison, Olivia Cook, and Emma Darcy. Right?
Yes.
They are the two of them. Somebody make a TV show with the two of them.
Yes.
Make it like Hope and Crosby, an old road picture. I want to see the two of them. You don't even need to write a script. Just let's take those two places and listen to them banter. I love them.
Like a reality show, you think they could have some?
No, it'll be no. Just give them scenarios like Blair Witch. Okay. Just say,
yes.
Okay, here's where we are. We're coming up to a border crossing, and you have both forgotten your passports. And just let it rip. And just get multiple cameras and shoot them. I mean, they are... Allison was, of course, in, Ready Player One?
I think so, yes.
She played, what's-her-face? And I love her. I love both of them. They're just the best. And I love them together, and my favorite thing now is watching. It's what Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were like 5 years ago. The two of them are now. Love them.
Yes.
I wish that, while the new season's being made, I wish the two of them every Sunday night would just do an hour-long live stream where they would just like riff, because I'm gonna miss them. And I
don't want season 1 to end, Robert.
I don't either. But by the way, Kenneth Colton, thanks for supporting the channel, and you're right. You are right. Andor, Black Adam had so much, but here's the thing. I think Black Adam was at least entertaining. We expect more from it. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I still had fun.
And this is something to think about. A film can mean different things to you at different times and under different circumstances. And the goal of a film is for entertainment purposes. And oftentimes, if that purpose is fulfilled, it may not be a fulfilling story, as you said, but if they meet that mark, you are going to, just enjoy it, I guess, more or less. So I think that's a very interesting concept. And maybe that's why the B film, Robert, and I know we've talked about B films. They do get made in a high quantity because I think that their main goal is just to get that entertainment. Perhaps it's not going to meet you on a higher level, but this, for entertainment purposes, can meet a good portion of people's expectations. I mean, what do you think?
Well, no, look, as a fan of great B movies, I'm always espousing the virtues of great B cinema. Unfortunately, all the great B movies are now $200 million A-list features, but they're still, their soul is a B movie.
Yes.
And I think, look, if someone said to me, Rob, you could have any amount of money you want, you can do anything you want in the film business, what would you do? And I would say, what I want to do is I want to create what Jason Blum is doing over at Blumhouse.
Yes.
You know, but I would not concentrate on Halloween, and now he's doing an Exorcist trilogy. You know, Jason Blum produced Whiplash with that won an Academy Award, J.K. Simmons, and he even says, I would never make that movie now because it made no money. And I'm like, bruh. I mean, I get it. I understand if that's all you want to do, but my dream, and I'm working toward this, is to have a production company where I can make like $4-5 million or less genre films a year with talented people that I know to write and direct. And if they're good, like Blumhouse, then you release them theatrically. The rest you can sell them to streaming. But a B movie is here's an example. If someone asks me, what is a great example of a B movie? What are you talking about? I would say Jack Shoulders, I want to say it was 1988. The Hidden. Michael Nouri, Kyle MacLachlan. The Hidden is about a cop chasing after a bad guy. It turns out both the bad guy and the cop are aliens that inhabit the bodies of human beings. And they've been chasing each other down. The bad guy killed the good guy who's inhabiting Kyle MacLachlan, you know, Agent Cooper from Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. The movie opens with a car chase. A Ferrari car chase is driving through MacArthur Park, goes through panes of glass. You're hearing Concrete Blonde, and then the cops stop the car, blow it up, and kill the protagonist. It's to me, The Hidden is a perfect B movie. The original Terminator is a great B movie. We are missing that. All of these concepts are now, look, Terminator was a $4 million movie. Terminator 2 was the first $100 million movie. That was the problem. Not the problem, because Terminator 2 kicks ass, but you know what I mean? Alien. And then to Aliens. Now, Black Adam might have been a B movie that Roger Corman made, but now it's a huge A-list film from Warner Brothers. And the problem is, B movies used to cost $7, $8, $9 million when New Line was making them. Now they're 150 or 200 million. So who's gonna? It's the whole world's crazy. Anyway, Man, MANN sends in a super chat and says, "My man Rob, love your takes." Well, thank you. A lot of people don't. Somebody said that they completely disagree with me on my take of Interview with a Vampire, which is fine. But I'm just saying I've been contemplative about the vampire mythology for a long time, and I get it because you know, when you talk about things, well, this is the way vampirism has to be, or no, you're wrong about time travel. I mean, think about how absurd that sounds. You're wrong about time travel. Only I know what's right about time travel. That is just laugh your ass off, because that's ridiculous. But fans are like that. You've had probably conversations where people are like, you don't know the first thing about how time travel works. Let me tell you how time travel works. And I'm sure you're thinking, rolling your eyes, going, it's not real. Time travel is not real. But yeah, we as fans, it is real. And there are rules. And if you don't adhere to them, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, theoretically, it may be real.
Yeah, man. I mean, come on. Alex Detman, one of our esteemed moderators. Alex says, question for everyone, just out of curiosity. Ooh, this is a good one. If you like movie or TV scores, who are your favorite composers, and what is one of your favorite scores? For me, it's Hans Zimmer, Lauren Balfe, Ryan Amon, and James Horner. Mm-hmm. Wow. Alex, no Jerry Goldsmith or John Williams?
My favorite has always been and will always be Thomas Newman. I think he's an incredible composer. I love everything he does. I feel like he has a magical way of scoring films. And one of my favorite scores is his version of Little Women, the one that Winona Ryder was in. He scored that, and I thought it was a beautiful score. So it's always going to be Thomas Newman for me.
I believe he scored The Player and Shawshank Redemption too.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And didn't he score 2 Bond films?
He scored, I think they said 8 out of the last 10 films he scored have made, millions and millions of dollars. Have been very successful films. So yes, he has. He's had a fantastic career. I think he's so incredibly talented. And I can actually recognize if I didn't know he did a film and I hear the soundtrack, I'm like, oh, that's Thomas Newman. Because I can tell by his touch and his composition value. So what about you, Robert? What are some composers that you are fond of?
Well, okay. I mean, some of my favorite film. First of all, of course, John Williams. But as much as John Williams, I would say Jerry Goldsmith and John Barry. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith, he didn't score the most iconic movies in the world, but he did score great movies. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith scored like Planet of the Apes. He scored Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He scored Chinatown. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith is an incredible film composer. I also love John Barry, who scored the James Bond movies. I mean, he scored Star Crash. He scored The Specialist, which I was talking about earlier today. But John Barry, he scored Out of Africa. He scored Dances with Wolves. I love John Barry. I love Tangerine Dream. My favorite Tangerine Dream scores is for Michael Mann's Thief. They scored William Friedkin's Sorcerer, Risky Business. And like the modern composers are great, but you know what? I can't tell you. I think the last time I bought, I can tell you this exactly. The last time I bought a movie score, the entire CD, because I still, collect CDs, was Junkie XL score for Mad Max Fury Road. And that was what, 2015? And I think the problem that I have with musical scoring now is a lot of the people that are scoring music or scoring movies they don't write music. They don't or read it. And a lot of it is it's not as formal as the music I grew up loving. Jerry Goldsmith scored like Logan's Run as well. And there's a lot of great composers, but and Hans Zimmer, I'll tell you something. The first Hans Zimmer score I ever heard was for Bernard Rose's first feature, a movie called Paper House. And if you go back and listen to the Paper House theme, it's really good. You'll be like, oh, yep, that's Hans Zimmer. So
there's another composer who, his name is escaping me. I'm kind of looking on my phone to see his name, but he composed the music for The Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's Ludwig
Göransson, yeah. He's great.
And
he's great. He did Black Panther as well.
Yes. I think he's incredibly talented.
Incredible. Yeah.
And, certainly I was not expecting that score for The Mandalorian. That added to my enjoyment of The Mandalorian. And I've seen part of what was interesting was that since we are in this kind of YouTube age, all the people who did the covers of it, where you get to see now people will do sort of like a symphony version of it. Another person will do a harmonica or kazoo versions, all sorts of, interesting versions of the score. It's really sets the tone of The Mandalorian, I think. So there is that,
I mean, my whole thing is that I do think, like so many other things, the formality and the underpinning rules or theory behind a lot of music, like with everything, our academics, especially in the United States, are lacking. And people are not learning the fundamentals of certain things, which is why there's not as many melodies. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you could whistle the theme to a movie?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, we grew up in a time, even pop music. so iconic. You know, I was listening to the other day, just yesterday or 2 days ago, on NPR. They were interviewing the B-52s. I'm Fred Schneider, you know, and I'm thinking about like the B-52s were so big, Rock Lobster, or you know, Dance This Mess Around,
and Love Shack.
That was even later B-52s, but yeah, and they were you know, fantastic, and coming out of Georgia. And when I think about film composing, so much film composing these days is lazy because where's the melody? It's like people are afraid of melody, and also it's hard to write melody. And it's because they can't write music. And I think that, not to put people down, I mean, I think Bear McCreary is a great composer. You know, he's done some amazing stuff. He composed the music for Rings of Power. Of course, he did the music for Battlestar Galactica. Our friend, and I can't, Ramon Dewandji, you know, I can't pronounce his name. House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones.
Yes.
He also wrote, before I bought the score for Fury Road, I bought the CD, the score for Pacific Rim. Because that score is fucking great, and it has a great theme.
Yes.
It's really good. You know, and I think film music, it's funny nowadays. I feel bad for kids because, you know, I'd buy these soundtrack albums. I start because of Star Wars, and then after that, I mean, I bought so many. I would go in and I'd buy every John Williams score. I mean, John Williams scored Brian De Palma's movie The Fury, which has a great theme. They don't even remember it. Or Wojciech Kilar, who did the score for The Ninth Gate and Coppola's Dracula, and John Williams did the score for John Badham's Dracula, and listen to those two Dracula themes. They're amazing, and also you know, there's a lot of composers, Goblin, who did Dawn of the Dead, and things like Suspiria, or Stelvio Cipriani, who he did. Actually, let me find a lot of these Ennio Morricone, and a lot of these Italian composers that wrote music in the 60s and 70s.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for the spaghetti westerns. There's also the guy who did the music for Cinema Paradiso, another Italian composer.
Okay, have you ever seen? By the way, you would love this, and I've got to find it. Let me see if this exists, because this keeps getting taken off of YouTube.
Oh.
It is one of my favorite pieces of music ever. And let me find it. And this is probably the edited version. Oh, this is put on recently. Hang on. Mm-hmm. Oh no, oh wait. Wow. Oh, this sounds terrible. Hang on. I've got to find it, because you are going to love this. Oh, sign in to confirm my age. I have to sign in, verify it's you. I'm on Google. It's like, come on, man. You're going to ask me to sign in to verify my age while I'm broadcasting on YouTube? I hope this doesn't kick me off. Uh-oh. Okay, here it is. Okay, here's one of my favorite pieces of film music ever. Oh my God. And it's from it is by Stelvio Cipriani, who is an Italian film composer. I'm going to put this in the live chat, and I want everyone to watch it and to know how amazing. I'm going to send this. Well, actually, it'll be in the live chat. So,
yes.
This is how I want every one of my Friday nights to go. So this is what we're missing. 1969. There it is. It's in the live chat. Watch this and tell me that this isn't how you want. And by the way, 1969, Femina Ridens or The Laughing Woman. Tell me this isn't what you want your life to be like. You're going to be like, wait, what? I know all of you are going to love this. Or maybe you won't. And let's not forget, Michael Giacchino says Kelly Rhodes, who's a member, and Danny Elfman. Yeah, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
not.
Yes.
You know, Michael Giacchino is a good composer. I love his score for Speed Racer. But you know what? whistle something he's composed. That's Star Trek 09. I can't believe I can whistle that. God damn it. Anyway, but watch Sophisticated Shake. I miss crazy foreign composers from the 60s. Anyway, so Alex, good question. Ishan Kumar says, can we see another lightsaber set piece from the Gilroys on Andor? No, there's no Jedis in that. They're gone. That was after Order 66. Another epic 20-second epic climax like in Rogue One. No, you're not going to see that. You might see, if any lightsaber is going to be ignited, it's with Luthen's Kyber crystal.
Yeah.
And I mean, they set that up. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that might even be too big of a piece. You might not even need that large of a piece for a lightsaber. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling it's a smaller piece. But certainly nice to see it. And it can't be a coincidence that there's a Kyber crystal and holocrons, Jedi, excuse me, and Sith holocrons in his possession. That's a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah. It is. No, absolutely. Penniless voice actor, by the way, says, is the Weekly Hero saved, Rob? Well, we made one of our little promos for Weekly Hero. It got 10,000 more views. I mean, wow. I don't understand. You can't kill a show after, on our channel, no one knows about it. And I think that, if you want to see the Weekly Hero, I love doing it with Chris Carr. I think she's great. I love doing it with her. Mm-hmm. I hope it's saved. So maybe, and to go along those lines, John Weilbecker says, free advice from a professional. You should pitch to John that the Weekly Hero be a Saturday show. It's not live, and it would benefit more time to generate views away from the daily live shows. I agree with you. I love doing that show, and it's me and Chris, and of course, look, on the John Campea channel, people want to see John Campea. It's like, look, to be honest, I'll tell you what really frustrates me. I bust my ass to do Designing Hollywood. And on the John Campea channel, it gets 2,500 to 5,000 views, maybe. I'm talking to Academy Award winners. I think if I had it on my channel, it'd get 10,000 views.
Well, could you? Is it possible?
Well, John obviously has 309,000 subscribers, and I understand why, but the demographic is different. And it's a very specific show. So it's frustrating, the whole viewership and what's valuable and what's not. So I don't know about is the Weekly Hero saved? I didn't know that it was on the chopping block. Maybe John has talked about that. We don't know what John does. I love working with John, but I don't know. He's always trying to improve the channel and do different things. I don't know what he wants to do with that. I know Chris and I love doing it. We've done 6 episodes. I ask all of you, go watch the Weekly Hero. Up those views. Make John save it. Parth Trivedi sends in a super sticker. I don't know what that super sticker. That looks like a Chickadee Thug Life video. Or a Thug Life super sticker. I love it. It's awesome. Penniless voice actor says, here's a name for your Star Trek top 10 shorts. Burnett's Roddenberry or Robinberry. Burnett's Robinberry. Here's the thing. The top 10 name, which is going to be 10 for you, is not just for Star Trek. It's for everything top 10. Right. It can do anything. It's got to be generic. So Mala has been a member for 13 months. Thank you, Mala. Mala also goes on to say, man, Black Adam was bad. I fell asleep multiple times. Well, that's understandable. Was Hawkman supposed to talk like an NFL player? Well, maybe. I don't know. But I understand. I feel your pain. I don't disagree with you. Alex Stetman says, I agree about The Specialist, but James Woods is fucking great and has one of the best villain deaths in an action movie. Hey, there's a reason why I love The Specialist. It's not a good movie, but James Woods is in it, and that's one of the reasons it's awesome. as a villain. Now he's canceled because he's a crazy conservative or whatever. But I love the Specialist. I love James Woods. He's whenever he's a villain, he's great. I fell in love with him in the Onion. Was it the Onion Field? And then, of course, in Videodrome. You got to love that. So I love it. Mark Spector's avatar says, okay, fine then, Rob. Now I want to see old Mark Hamill kick your ass. Just kidding. Look, here's the thing. All that stuff is great, but I would like this. Star Wars takes place in this gigantic universe. You know, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away with like hundreds of millions of stars in one galaxy, and I don't want it to be so limited. I feel that what Andor does is it opens up the storytelling for Star Wars, don't you think?
Absolutely. You know, and it's what's funny about it is that I think that what Andor is perhaps more of what we've seen in some of the books that just hasn't been made into live action, so to speak, but away from the Jedi. We have such an extensive library of what life was like. And now we're finally seeing that in the live action. But the closest thing that would have to would be in the books, right, Robert? I mean, the lifestyle of what people have in Star Wars is best described in book form of the thousands of stories that are already written.
Yeah.
So, this is the first time we're really seeing it. And, it feels as if it came from a book, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I just think, like, everyone wants to see Jedi Knights, and I'm like, we've seen that. I mean, it'd be like, okay, if you lived on the world and you only watched entertainment about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. But what about the people that live in the castles and worked on the streets? So what about their stories? And it's like, I love the Knights of the Round Table and the search for the Holy Grail and all that. But is that the only story you want to hear? And I think the Star Wars universe is so much more than that. And what we're getting is a different kind of a story. And yet everyone's like, I want to see the familiar. And I'm like, but you've got that already. Why not watch something and delve into what they're trying to do? Because it's really clever. What they're doing is they're showing you the flip side of what you haven't seen. And you're on the flip side of, like, when you get to the Rebel base at the end of Star Wars A New Hope, where did they get the Y-Wing and X-Wing fighters? How were they able to afford those things? What about all the astromech droids? Where are all those people coming from?
Yes.
They were already there. And it's like, now we're finding out how they got there.
Yes.
How were they on the fourth moon of Yavin in the first place? Where did they get their X-Wings? I mean, it's funny to me because I'm like, okay, all those people so Luke and Han show up. It's like, let's give them an X-Wing. Here's your astromech droid. But what about all those? When did they decide to settle that moon? How did that happen? How did they smuggle all the X-Wing and Y-Wing snub fighters into that planet without being found out? I mean, there's so much interesting information that everyone wants to see. I just want to see someone ignite a lightsaber. I'm like, I don't. I've already seen it. And the Jedi are gone. There's no more Jedi. And Luke hasn't got his father's lightsaber yet. The only Jedi that exists at the time of Andor, unless you can, yes, there's animated characters brought into live action, but we are 5 years away from where Luke gets, where Obi-Wan Kenobi gives Luke his lightsaber. So why would we see Jedi? They're gone. Other than Luthen, who's collecting their wares. But I would imagine that there will eventually be a lightsaber ignited because it's a tool. It's a tool like that. But why would we see that? That Order 66 happened 2 decades ago or whatever. I like what we're seeing now because all the familiar Star Wars stuff is not there. It's all gone. There's no way to get it back. You can't be like, well, here's a Jedi. And what's he going to do? Like, zzz, look, I have a lightsaber. Okay. What are you going to do with it?
Well, Robert, I do want to ask you about Omar 94's letter.
Oh. Yes, I forgot about that. Should I find Omar 94? Let's see if I can find it.
Yes.
All right, Omar 94's letter. There's many iterations of Omar 94's letter. Hang on. Omar, who is one of the great, most prolific letter writers of the Burnettwork. Hang on. Let me see what I have here. That's not Omar 94's letter. That's not it. Wait a minute. Do I not have it here? Why, I'm looking at all these. There's so many Oh, yes, here they are. I have letters from Omar. And hang on, there's 3. Well, okay. That's Midnight Musings. Hang on. Let me make sure.
It's specifically for Midnight Musings.
Well, there's actually 3.
Okay.
So here we go. There are 3. These are addendums. Hang on. Wait, they're both. These are addendums. I'm looking at these. Another addendum. Okay, I got to go back. All right, here it is. So for those of you who don't know, Omar94 is a prolific letter writer to the channel. And if you want to write letters to the Post-Geek Singularity, to us that we will read on the air, you can go to postgeeksingularity.com. Here is a letter from one of our most prolific letter writers, Omar94, that, of course, has 2 addendums to it. But I'm going to read this one. Hi, Rob, Lael, moderators, and the Post-Geek Singularity. We haven't had the highest entertainment quality with most movies and shows coming out, which leads me here. When lockdown first happened, I sent letters recommending movies and shows I found underappreciated for everyone to check out. So I thought I'd bring that back. A 1980s TV show, Jim Henson's The Storyteller. It's 9 episodes. It's based on European folktales, with every episode written by English patient director Anthony Minghella. There's a 4-episode spin-off called Greek Myths, which is also good, but The Storyteller is better. A 1992 Ron Howard film, Far and Away, with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, is also good. It's about Irish immigrants coming to America to obtain free land. Early warning, Cruise and Kidman's Irish accents are not the best. You mean you don't like it when Tom Cruise says, "You're a corker, Shannon." Corker. A 1996 Japanese film, Shall We Dance? It's about an unhappy accountant secretly taking dancing lessons, which was remade and one of the inspirations for Tango Shalom. A 1997 Kevin Costner film he starred and directed it, The Postman, which I fucking love. I saw him. When I first saw The Postman, I saw him in a theater announcing it. It's based on a David Brin novel. It's a science fiction book. It's about a drifter putting on a postman's uniform, delivering mail to inspire hope in a post-apocalyptic America set in 2013. A 2008 Baz Luhrmann film, Australia, starring Nicole Kidman and Hugh Jackman. Interesting. 2 movies. One's about conquering Australia. One's about conquering America. Both starring Nicole Kidman. Yes. It's about an English woman who inherits a large ranch in Australia and must drive cattle across harsh terrain to save her ranch. With the help of a stock man, all leading up to the Japanese bombing of Darwin in World War II. A 1987 French film, Au revoir les enfants. It's about a Jewish boy arriving at a French boarding school run by priests during World War II and becomes friends with a student there, which is great. It's Louis Malle, I think, right?
Yes.
A 1984 Gary Marshall film, The Flamingo Kid, starring Matt Dillon, another great movie. I believe, is that on Kino Lorber? It might be. Other cast members people might know are Hector Elizondo, who appears in all of Marshall's films, and Richard Crenna, who played Colonel Troutman in the Rambo movies. It's about a teenager from a working-class family in 1963 getting a summer job at a beach resort. A 1940s Alfred Hitchcock film, Foreign Correspondent, starring Joel McCrea. It's about an American reporter based in England who tries exposing enemy spies involved in a major conspiracy. The only bad thing about it is the ending, which was tacked on last minute, since the original ending was more cynical. A 1964 screwball comedy, Good Neighbor Sam, starring Jack Lemmon and Edward G. Robinson in a supporting role. It's about a family man posing as his neighbor's husband to help her claim an inheritance. A 1964 comedy, Sex and the Single Girl, starring Tony Curtis, Lauren Bacall, and Henry Fonda. It's about a womanizing reporter impersonating his neighbor to get a scoop on a renowned psychologist. There's also a Some Like It Hot nod thrown in. These are my suggestions to make up for the majority of underwhelming movies and shows we've had recently. I like these, but that doesn't mean all of you will, so you might think otherwise if you watch them. But thanks, and live long and prosper. Omar, a great list. Good to have you back.
Yes, I especially am fond of Sex and the Single Girl. It stars Natalie Wood as the single girl. She is, I believe, a psychiatrist or a psychologist in the story. She's written a book, and her whole premise is that the single girl can have sex and perhaps outside of being involved with anyone. And that definitely ruffles a lot of feathers in the story. And it was made in the 60s at a time where that idea was somewhat introduced into the culture here in the U.S. So it certainly is a great and fun film, Robert.
It is. And I've seen it as well. And Natalie Wood, shwing. Yeah. We'll finish out these super chats, and then I should let you go. We should end this show. It's been going on for a long time.
Yes.
Let's see. House the Dragon. Oh shoot. Glenn Mark says, as Penniless voice actor says, "Oh shoot, wrong name. I just noticed. Should be Glenn Mark. However, it's still true." I knew that, Glenn Mark. Chef Thanos says, "Hi Rob. I just wanted to say you're my favorite on the John Campea show." Thank you. Do you like playing video games? I know a few that might tickle your imagination bone. Yeah, I do. I mean, I have an Xbox X and a PlayStation 5. I mean, I can tell you some of my favorite video games. My favorite video game of all time is the Activision remake of Battlezone from the late 90s. Oh my God, do I love that game. Love it, love it. It's an a real-time strategy game, and a first-person shooter, and it's just the best. I also love, I mean, it's cliche. I'm a huge fan of the Grand Theft Auto series. I loved Grand Theft Auto 5. It's been what? It's going to be 10 years since Grand Theft Auto 5 came out. Next year? Was it 2013?
I think so.
I mean, I love all the Capcom games. I'm a huge Onimusha fan. I love Devil May Cry. I love all that. And yes, I do like The Last of Us, and I do like Skyrim, and I do, you know, I like video games. My problem is this. Here's what pisses me off. I cannot stand. I was really excited to get the PlayStation. I love driving games. To get the PlayStation Hot Wheels game. And then, of course, you can't play it without buying. I hate in-game purchases. Hate. I get it. If I spend $56 for a game or whatever, I do not want to have to buy in-game purchases, especially after the first couple of screens, to be able to beat the next screen or the next level, because my car is not equipped enough. It's so lame. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5, I mean, I know their online component's huge, but when you used to buy the disc, that was the game. You didn't buy more shit to get through it. It's so fucking stupid. I hate it. Hate it. And that, by the way, that really put me off video games. I stopped when I had to buy. I was so excited to get that PlayStation 5 Hot Wheels game. And, you know, you have to immediately start paying extra money. I'm like, why? I mean, I get it. Someone's making money. But you know what? I got so frustrated with that after a couple hours. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for me. I mean, you have to buy new shit. I hate it. Hate it. Anyway. Terrier says, Goldsmith scored my sex life. Lots of trombone. Was it rusty? Sorry, Terrier. I'm a big fan of the old trombone myself. Giving and getting, blowing and whatever. So good for you. You and I are birds of a feather. Kelly Rhodes says, let's don't forget Michael Giacchino and Danny Elfman. No, I'd said that earlier. No, I mean, look, I really like both of their scores. They're new. I mean, Danny Elfman, Batman, you know, he's not bad. I like Danny Elfman stuff. I really liked his score for the movie Wanted. And he did a song for that movie called The Little Things that I think is really, really good, which is not even available like online. I don't know why, but Get the soundtrack. I like both of them. Alex Detman says, Rob, my guy just showed me this old Reebok campaign of commercials called Terry Tate Office Linebacker. Please look it up on YouTube because I have never laughed so hard and it is my dream job. Well, Alex, I will do that, which is good. So now it's almost 4 a.m. where you are.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
How about that? It's been
all right, Robert.
It's been a great show. You've been a good sport, a good trooper. Tom Jr. Jackson, thank you for being a great moderator. Alex Detman.
We're all good people.
We're all good people. I'm going to let go. I, too, am going to go to bed because I'm really tired. I'm not going to have people come on. I'm sorry. It's almost 1 a.m. It was a long week of streaming. I want to thank everyone for supporting the channel via Super Chats and tips. Everybody should go and watch the show on this channel, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays.
Yes.
Which is great with Leona Creole. They're great. Chef Thomas says, I have a game for you, Sunless Sea. Its narrative design is amazingly spooky. It's got great writing, and it genuinely punishes you if you mess up. Oh, I'm into that. I mean, I like games like that. I mean, I like Silent Hill. I liked Ico. I like Shadow of Colossus.
Yes, Shadow of Colossus was a good
Sunless Sea. I'll play it. So thanks for that. And everybody, if you're a member of the channel, tomorrow in 10 hours, we're having a membership chat. Thank you all for supporting the channel the way you do. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. So, thank you for being here. And here's a big thanks to Lael Rockwell. And I guess I will say I will bid you farewell to next week and next week's Midnight Musings, which is close to Halloween.
Ooh.
And on that note, my dear, I would say live long and prosper. And as Obi-Wan said, wait, how do I do this? Don't give in to hate. That leads to the dark side. So, that was Jedi. Anyway. Any last words?
It was such a great show, Robert, and I just want to thank everybody in the community for their support. This is such a wonderful group to be a member of. I'm enjoying myself, and I hope everybody who is a member of the PGS is doing the same.
Hear, hear. And we will see you tomorrow in mere hours at that member call.
Absolutely.
And I would say to everybody, have a better night.
Bye.
We're good.
Okay, and I also want to tell you, Robert, I still have your screenplay. I'm going to read it and comment on it. I haven't done it yet, but I will do that.
Okay, we're off the air. Yes.